Chapter 1123. Ning Fan did not dive into the bottom of the Realm River right in front of the cultivators of the Soaring Cloud Pass. Instead, he flew far away from the Soaring Cloud Pass before diving into the water of the Realm River. The act of diving into the riverbed was too shocking. In the eyes of the Eastern Sky cultivators, it was tantamount to seeking one's own death. Ning Fan didn't want to shake the morale of Soaring Cloud Pass because of this matter. Ning Fan knew very well that the bottom of the Realm River was extremely dangerous. However, didn't he capture a mermaid empress whose name was Afro? He had obtained a lot of information about the Boundary River from the other party, which was why he was confident that he could move freely under the Boundary River. He already had 7 Dragon Horse true spirits in his hands. Because they did not cultivate their sea of consciousness, he could not search their memories. As a member of a foreign race, Aphrodite also did not cultivate her sea of consciousness. However, Ning Fan was actually able to obtain a lot of information from her through the combination of mind-reading technique and bewitching technique. This surprised Ning Fan. The mind-reading technique is useless against ordinary female members of the foreign race. However, it can be used against Afro, who is a half-step quasi-saint. Why is that? During the time when Ling Yun was in seclusion, Ning Fan had interrogated Aphrodite thrice. Of course, the captured Aphrodite didn't know that it was an interrogation. Firstly, Ning Fan did not torture her. Secondly, he did not use force on her. He was just talking to her normally to make her lower her guard. Afro was not afraid that Ning Fan would kill her. She also had a unique true spirit. Besides, it was a true spirit that was of a higher grade than the Dragon Horse. It would be extremely difficult to kill her. She was very tight-lipped. No matter what questions Ning Fan asked her, she would not say a single word. She would only glare at Ning Fan angrily. Occasionally, when she spoke, it was just to threaten Ning Fan to let her go. Otherwise, the Merfolk clan would take revenge on her and so on. Afro did not know that Ning Fan had the mind-reading technique. Thus, she was unaware of it. Even if she kept her mouth shut as long as she willed it, Ning Fan would still be able to find out a lot of information. If Afro was in her normal state, Ning Fan would not be able to pry into her mind with the mind-reading technique since she was a half-step quasi-saint realm expert. However, now that her cultivation base and abilities were sealed by the bewitching technique, Ning Fan could easily pry into her thoughts and obtain a large amount of information related to the foreign races. Without this information, no matter how bold Ning Fan was, he would not recklessly dive into the bottom of the river. The infiltration this time was not an impulsive move, but the result of his careful consideration. It might seem bold, but it was actually filled with confidence. The moment Ning Fan leaped into the river, circles of sealing power spread from the surface of the river to a very far distance. It was the sealing power that immortal sovereign Zido had placed in the border river. After Ning Fan had cleaned up the area, there were almost no foreign races left on the surface of the water. However, the bottom of the water was still a dragon's pond and tiger's den. You could see foreign races swimming around everywhere. There were quite a few strange races in the vicinity, and when they sensed this fluctuation entering the water, some busybodies immediately came over to take a look to see whether or not it was an Eastern Sky cultivator secretly sneaking into the riverbed. Several large Hengong fish with thought-shattering cultivation bases were the first to swim over. After a brief examination, they discovered that the person entering the water wasn't an Eastern Sky cultivator, but rather a carp. That carp was naturally Ning Fan's transformation. The reason why he was able to transform into a carp was all thanks to the fact that he had devoured the eyes of the Dao carp, which allowed him to cultivate an extremely small amount of carp clan demonic blood. After obtaining Aphrodite's information, Ning Fan bought some tools through the ancient country trading formation. After a little disguise, he actually managed to disguise the demonic chi of the carp clan's demon blood as the chi of a foreign race. That was an extremely bold action. When the other Eastern Sky cultivators sneaked into the riverbed, all of them were extremely cautious and concealed their figures. Ning Fan, on the other hand, did the exact opposite. He openly disguised himself as a member of a foreign race and openly moved in the riverbed. Luana? Siamo, Kakaka Lu Tianyi. The few large Hengong fish spoke the language of the water race and inquired about Ning Fan's identity. From Aphrodite's memories, Ning Fan had learned some basic dialogues of the water race. Now that he was listening to the gibberish of the few large fishes, he did not feel as if he was listening to a heavenly book like the other eastern sky cultivators. In other words, it was as follows. Who are you? Why are you acting so sneakily? Which clan are you from? Since Ning Fan did not learn the language of the water race properly, he did not know many words. However, he was still able to carry out some basic dialogues. Knowing that speaking too much would lead to mistakes, Ning Fan only used the simplest language of the water race to answer them. I am a cultivator of the Heavenly Cluster Fish Clan. Heavenly Cluster Fish Clan? The few large Hengong fish were slightly stunned. Then, their eyes revealed disdain. The Heavenly Clusterfish clan was not a strong clan in the 11th water path. They did not even have an immortal king in their clan. They only had a few immortal venerables from the ancient times. Their overall strength was pitifully weak. They were even weaker than the descendants of some strong clans. This clan was weak in the first place. The cultivation base that Ning Fan displayed was not strong either. It was only around the void fragmentation realm. After all, his carp blood was very thin and he could not disguise the chi of a powerful member of the water race. As such, the few large Hengong fish were too lazy to talk nonsense with Ning Fan. After asking him a few questions, they directly turned around and swam away. They only needed to confirm that the person who entered the river was not a cultivator of the eastern sky. They did not have the intention to chat with the weak heavenly clusterfish. Seeing that he managed to deceive the first group of foreign races, Ning Fan's confidence was greatly boosted. He activated his giant carp demon body and swam deeper into the water. Along the way, he would occasionally encounter other members of the foreign races who came to interrogate him. Ning Fan became more and more unruffled. He used his identity as a heavenly clusterfish as a disguise to fool them. They could only blame the fact that there were too many members of the foreign races. Not everyone could recognize even immortal venerables or immortal kings of the foreign races, let alone a first-step void fragmentation realm little fish. As such, Ning Fan could actually move freely under the water without any obstruction. Now that his spirit sense had improved tremendously, even though the magnetic force under the water was much stronger than on the surface of the water, it was not to the extent where he could not spread out his spirit sense completely. He could still sense the surroundings within a range of several thousand zhang. Even though it was not too far away, it was not to the extent where he could not find the right direction under the water. He even secretly kept the treasure-searching compass in the fish's mouth and used it to determine his position. As such, he was almost as familiar with the direction of the river bottom as the real members of the foreign races. There was not a single suspicious spot on his body that would allow others to see through his identity. Ning Fan's purpose of diving into the river bottom was very clear. He wanted to steal as many heavy wood of the foreign races as possible and use them to concoct pills to improve his cultivation base. However, according to Afro's information, even though the quantity of heavy wood at the bottom of the river was huge, all of them had an owner and were controlled by various large marine races. The Heavenly Clusterfish clan was one of the races that controlled the heavy wood. However, because this clan was weak, the amount of heavy wood they had could not be compared to those large races. Of course, they still had a lot more heavy wood compared to the forces of the eastern sky. The foreign races did not consume pills to cultivate. Instead, they directly built their clan on the heavy wood. The ancient foreign races would directly extract the spiritual chi of the heavy wood and refine it for cultivation. According to the information given by Afro and the location of the treasure-searching compass, Ning Fan roughly determined the location of the Heavenly Clusterfish clan under the water and swam in that direction. The carp blood cultivation base that Ning Fan revealed was just at the void fragmentation realm. Thus, he could not swim too fast in front of the other members of the foreign races. Fortunately, the marine races did not rely on their own speed to swim at the bottom of the river. They could ride the current to move forward, which greatly increased their speed. After riding on the current, Ning Fan's speed was not slow either. In just a few days, he had already swum to the territory of the Heavenly Cluster Fish Clan. The first thing that entered his sight was a majestic giant coral city. The seven-colored light from the corals illuminated the dark bottom of the river, making it look as bright as daytime. The bottom of the river was obviously dark, but this city seemed like it would never experience night. On the city gate, there were 3 large ancient words written in the language of the foreign races. Ning Fan naturally did not recognize these words. However, he had found out from Afro that the name of this city was Hooked Jade City. Every member of the Heavenly Cluster Fish Clan cultivated a strange ability called Hooked Jade. This ability was almost the symbol of the Heavenly Cluster Fish Clan. Unfortunately, Ning Fan was just a fake fish. Thus, he naturally did not know how to use it. However, he was not afraid that the Heavenly Cluster Fish Clan would see through his disguise. This time, when he came to the Heavenly Cluster Fish Clan, Ning Fan was playing the role of an outsider who had just returned to the clan for the first time. The reproduction of the foreign races was extremely random. Be it the surface of the water or the bottom of the river, there were insect eggs scattered everywhere. These insect eggs could hatch into a large number of young members of the foreign races. Of course, not all of the young members of the foreign races could live to adulthood. Most of them would die prematurely and be eaten by other young members of the foreign races. Those who could survive through natural selection were certainly the elites. When these people grow up, they would obey the call deep in their bloodline and travel thousands of li to return to their clan to receive the arrangements and guidance of the experts of their clan. When Ning Fan arrived at the Hooked Jade City, the patrolling fish immediately noticed his chi of the Heavenly Cluster Fish Clan and the fact that he had never cultivated the Hooked Jade ability. As such, these patrolling fish naturally regarded Ning Fan as a small fish who had just returned to his clan. They did not suspect his identity, but they still interrogated him according to the rules. "Hey, little brat, where did you come from?" The language that they used to interrogate him was naturally the language of the foreign races. "Water. On the surface of the river." Ning Fan answered using the language of the foreign races that he was not familiar with. Seeing that Ning Fan was not familiar with the language of the foreign races, the patrolling fish immediately looked down on him. Normally, the foreign races with higher innate talents could automatically learn the language of the foreign races by relying on the memories of their bloodline after they reach adulthood. Only those foreign races with lower innate talents would not be able to understand the language of the foreign races, and they would stutter when they speak. From the bottom of their hearts, the patrolling fish had already regarded Ning Fan as a person with mediocre innate talents. Thus, they were no longer polite when they spoke to him. They only told Ning Fan what he needed to do to acknowledge his ancestors and return to his clan before sending him to the Hooked Jade City. Ning Fan, on the other hand, was happy to not talk nonsense with these patrolling fish. Of course, he understood the logic of saying too much would lead to mistakes. After the members of the foreign races who had been lost in the outside world acknowledged their ancestors and returned to their clan, they first needed to go to the elders' courtyard where the elders of their clan resided to undergo enlightenment. The Hooked Jade City was very large. Just one city alone could accommodate millions of heavenly cluster fish. Besides, because the buildings in the city were all the same, Ning Fan had to ask for directions many times before he finally found the elders' courtyard. At this moment, there were already thousands of small fishes at the first step of cultivation base gathered in the elders' courtyard. They were all heavenly cluster fish who had come to acknowledge their ancestors and return to their clan. Every day, many small fishes would return from other places. However, it was impossible for Elder Yu, who was in charge of the elders' courtyard, to come every day to enlighten these small fishes. Elder Yu would only appear on the 1st and 15th day of every month according to the water races calendar. Today was only the 7th day of the water races calendar. He still had to wait for another 8 days before he would come. Ning Fan blended into the crowd of small fishes and waited quietly. He planned to stay here for 8 days. He was not worried about staying underwater for too long. If a battle breaks out in the Soaring Cloud Pass, he would rush back immediately. This was not a problem at all. While he was waiting, he activated the treasure-searching compass from time to time to secretly investigate the mineral resources in this place. If the treasure-searching compass was not mistaken, There were hundreds of gene of 800 million in heavy wood hidden under the ground of this hooked jade city. One should know that a fist-sized piece of in heavy wood was already enough to make the Eastern Heaven Immortal Emperor fight, let alone hundreds of gene worth of in heavy wood. If I use all of them to concoct pills, I wonder how many bottles of immeasurable pills I can concoct. Ning Fan suppressed the desire in his heart and did not directly snatch these in heavy wood. The underground veins of the foreign races were connected to each other. If he directly snatches the in heavy wood here, he would definitely be discovered by the quasi-saints of the foreign races. There were no quasi-saints in the territory of the 11 paths, but there were in the other waterways. If it's something else, those quasi-saints of the foreign races would come to the 11th path and interfere with the matters of the 11th path. However, if the earth veins of the in heavy wood of any clan are destroyed, the quasi-saints would immediately come to question them. To the foreign races, this matter was actually the most important matter. Its seriousness seemed to be far greater than the matter of Ning Fan causing trouble to the 11th path. Thinking of this, Ning Fan could not help but feel a headache. Of course, he did not want to attract the attention of the quasi-saints of the foreign races. However, he was also determined to obtain the in heavy wood here. Then, how can I take the in heavy wood here without anyone noticing? He fell into deep thought. Just like that, 8 days passed. Every day, there would be many heavenly cluster fishes returning from other places. They would come to the elder's courtyard to wait for the opening ceremony. When Ning Fan first arrived, there were only a few thousand small fishes in the courtyard. On the 15th day, there were already more than 10,000 small fishes in the courtyard. These small fishes did not converse with each other because everyone knew that the people who attended the opening ceremony at the same time were all competitors. There was no need for them to befriend each other. The opening ceremony of the Heavenly Clusterfish clan was extremely bloody. It was said that thousands of fishes would have to fight and kill each other. Only the last batch of survivors would be qualified to accept Elder Yu's opening ceremony and officially join the Heavenly Clusterfish clan. The small fishes who could come to the Heavenly Clusterfish clan were originally elites who had gone through natural selection. After that, they would be selected through slaughter. It was no wonder that the strength of the foreign races was much higher than the Eastern Sky cultivators who were at the same level as them. When Elder Yu arrived at the Elder's courtyard, what he saw was the scene of tens of thousands of small fishes waiting quietly. He was quite satisfied with how these fishes behaved themselves. It was a strange large fish that walked upright with a forked tail as its feet and fins as its hands. As Elder Yu of the Heavenly Clusterfish clan, his cultivation base was at the peak of the thought fragmentation realm. He was the fourth person with the most authority in the clan, second only to the three ancient immortal venerables. Elder Yu's eyes swept across the area below him indifferently. He secretly activated his bloodline to sense the surroundings. He discovered that there seemed to be a few good seedlings among the tens of thousands of fishes below him. Their bloodline density was extremely high. Of course, whether those few were really good seedlings or not still needed to be confirmed through a battle. All of you, follow me to the slaughterhouse. Elder Yu said indifferently and walked out from the back door of the Elder's courtyard. All the small fishes immediately swam behind him. On the sandy land behind the Elder's courtyard, there was an open area that was enclosed by a formation. There were countless fish bones in that area. It was the place where the small fishes who had just gained enlightenment in the past fought against each other. Under Elder Yu's command, the tens of thousands of heavenly cluster fish entered the slaughterhouse in a single file. The moment the formation door was closed, the battle began. Even though Ning Fan was already mentally prepared, he was still surprised by the indifference of the low-level foreign races towards life and death. As the saying goes, even ants seek to live. Not to mention the cultivators of the Eastern Sky, even those immortal emperors of the foreign races were not afraid of death. However, this rule did not apply to the low-level foreign races. The spiritual intelligence of the low-level foreign races was very low. Even if they could speak the human language, they only possessed an extremely low level of thinking ability. They did not know how to be content with pleasure. They retained the wild nature of natural creatures. They only knew about the survival of the fittest. As for killing and life, They almost had no feelings. To them, killing was a very common thing. Even if they die because of it, it did not matter to them. The cultivation base of the fish that Ning Fan revealed was at the void fragmentation realm. However, there were still some harmonious spirit realm and gold core realm heavenly cluster fish that were attacking him. Their faces were not filled with fear but only greed. They wanted to eat Ning Fan's flesh. They wanted to drink Ning Fan's high-grade fish blood. How blind they were! Of course, it was impossible for Ning Fan to stand still and let the enemies bite him to death. If he wanted to sneak into the Heavenly Clusterfish clan, he would need to show his achievements during the Enlightenment ceremony and temporarily join the clan. Killing was unavoidable. In this place, the strong were respected. Devour! Ning Fan opened his mouth and directly swallowed the Heavenly Clusterfish that were attacking him. Not only did his action not scare the people around him, but it also aroused the ferocity of more heavenly clusterfish. All of them attacked him. Without a doubt, he devoured all of them without missing a single one. When Elder Yu saw this scene, his eyes lit up. Then he let out a sinister smile. This little fellow seems to be not bad. Even though his bloodline isn't strong, his ferocity is far scarier than the other small fishes. I can take him in as my disciple. When he grows up, I will slaughter him and refine him into jade. At this moment, Ning Fan still did not know that he was being targeted by Elder Yu. Even if he knew, he would not care. A mere peak thought fragmentation realm being was far from being qualified to harm him. Besides, Elder Yu did not only target Ning Fan. Among this group of small fishes, there were also a few good seedlings. Even though their ferocity was not as good as Ning Fan's, their bloodlines were superior. It was hard to say who was better and who was worse. 1 hour later, the formation gate of the slaughterhouse was opened. Only Ning Fan and a few hundred small fishes survived from the slaughterhouse. The rest of them were all killed in the chaotic battle. Even though Ning Fan did not deliberately show off his strength, Elder Yu still regarded him as the strongest among them. You guys are very good. From today onwards, you are the true members of the Heavenly Clusterfish clan. Next, I will arrange a place for you to stay and teach you the basic cultivation methods of our clan. You can move around freely in Goyu City. However, without my permission, you are not allowed to leave the city within 100 years. Do you understand? All of the small fishes answered in unison. The foreign races had always been absolutely obedient to their orders. Ning Fan was not one of those obedient heavenly clusterfish. Naturally, he would not obey the other party's orders. If he wanted to leave, he could leave the Heavenly Clusterfish clan at any time. However, he had not obtained the Een Heavy Wood yet. Thus, he was not in a hurry to leave. He wanted to think of a way to take the Een Heavy Wood away without anyone noticing. Eventually, Ning Fan and the others were arranged to stay in the lower district of Goyu City. If they want to stay in a higher district, they would need battle merits and a high grade. Obviously, these heavenly clusterfish who had just returned to their clan did not have those qualifications. Every one of them had a single fish house. It was a shell-shaped building with simple decorations. After all, it was just a lower district. When Ning Fan arrived at his own fish house, he was slightly surprised. Even though his fish house was also very simple, it was obviously much more spacious compared to the others who had just gained enlightenment at the same time. The interior of the house was even equipped with coral lamps. This was a treatment that the other fish houses did not have. That Elder Yu seems to be giving me special treatment. I wonder if it's kindness or malice. Ning Fan smiled meaningfully. How could he not notice the undisguised greed in Elder Yu's eyes when he was talking to him at the end? Perhaps the other party was plotting something against him. That was why he gave him special treatment. But what does it matter? Would he be afraid of a peak thought fragmentation realm cultivator? Even if he stood still and let the other party kill him, the other party would not be able to kill him. This was the difference between their cultivation levels. However, what I didn't expect is that the cultivation method of this heavenly clusterfish clan seems to be quite unique. The strength of this clan is not considered strong in the border river, but its background is actually quite impressive. The small fishes who had passed the enlightenment ceremony were all rewarded with 3 inherited fish scales. The fish scales contain the inheritance. By consuming and refining the fish scales, one could obtain the inheritance. After using the inherited fish scales, Ning Fan's expression suddenly turned solemn. A layer of dark clouds appeared on his face. The first inherited fish scales were the words and language of the foreign race. The second inherited fish scales were the deep history of the heavenly cluster fish clan. The third inherited fish scales were some basic cultivation methods and abilities of the heavenly cluster fish clan. Cultivators had a photographic memory. With the help of the inherited fish scales, Ning Fan only used half a day to learn all the languages of the heavenly cluster fish clan. In this way, his knowledge of the language of the foreign race was no longer half-baked. He also learned about the deep history of the heavenly cluster fish clan from the second fish scale. It turned out that the true identity of the foreign race that was suppressed by immortal sovereign Zido in the border river was actually the descendants of immortal sovereign Ziwei. Few cultivators in the eastern heaven knew about this. When Ning Fan suddenly heard about it, he was also very shocked. He even explained some of the doubts in his heart. It was no wonder that the abilities of these foreign races were all extraordinary. Many of them even had a strong, profound qi. It turned out that they were the inheritances of the Ziwei star region. Zido, Ziwei, Big Dipper of Ziwei. In the past, immortal sovereign Zido destroyed the Ziwei and Big Dipper immortal domains. However, he preserved the bloodline of the descendants of his enemies in the illusory world. In front of them were the Big Dipper descendants of the Slaughter Hall, and behind them were the Purple Myrtle descendants of the Border River. Was immortal sovereign Zido really that magnanimous to be able to tolerate the existence of these enemies' descendants? Or did he have other plans? For a moment, Ning Fan's eyes looked deep and serene. Naturally, he could not think of an answer. After a long time, he put away his distracting thoughts and swallowed the third inheritance fish scale, obtaining the inheritance. In an instant, the contents of the first volume of the 12 sacred volumes of the heavenly cluster appeared in his memory. These contents only included the heaven cluster fish cultivation method and divine ability before the golden core stage. Ning Fan's did not attach much importance to the gold core realm, but there were two places that he was very concerned about. One was the name of the Heaven Cluster Fish Clan's cultivation technique. The 12 sacred scrolls of the Heavenly Cluster. It seemed like what he had obtained was only the first scroll of the 12 sacred scrolls. However, this cultivation technique actually had the word sacred in it. Could this be a first step sage cultivation technique? Or perhaps the word saint was just an adjective. Another thing that caught his attention was a divine ability recorded in the first volume of the 12 Holy Scrolls. Heaven's Hook Jade. This divine ability was the status symbol of the Heaven Cluster Fish Clan. It was also the origin of the name Hook Jade City. What Ning Fan obtained was just the rudimentary method of the Heaven Cluster Fish Clan. The content was not too profound. Even so, he was still attracted by the introduction of the Heaven Cluster Fish Clan. There were 300 saints serving under immortal sovereign Ziwei. One of them was called Ancestral Master Langya. He was the ancestor of the Heaven Cluster Fish Clan. The ability that Ancestral Master Langya was most proud of in his life was the Heaven Cluster Fish Clan. This was one of the few divine abilities that could directly increase the power of a Dao weapon. It could be used to cultivate the Heaven Cluster Fish and embed it into a Dao weapon. If one were to use the Heaven Cluster Fish Clan to kill people normally, its power would not be that strong. If it were other divine abilities, Ning Fan probably would not be that interested. However, this Heaven Cluster Fish Clan could embed it into a Dao weapon and increase its power. Ning Fan had to admit that it was very attractive. If he cultivates this Heaven Cluster Fish Clan, he would certainly be able to increase the power of the ocean-defying sword. A Dao weapon would follow Ning Fan for the rest of his life. Ning Fan was rather indifferent towards magic treasures, but he still attached great importance to Dao weapons. After all, the current ocean-defying sword was already one of Ning Fan's main means of attack. If the power of the ocean-defying sword is further improved, Ning Fan smiled. He was happy to obtain an unexpected gain. However, there were not many people in the Heaven Cluster Fish Clan who could cultivate Dao weapons. Most of them only used the Heaven Cluster Fish Clan to directly kill their enemies. Thus, the power of their Heaven Clusterfish clan was naturally not high. It was a disgrace to the reputation of their ancestors. It was not that the Heaven Clusterfish clan did not want to cultivate Dao weapons. It was just that the path they took was not the normal path of cultivation. After a long period of time, these members of the foreign race had walked further and further away from the cultivation method of the immortal sovereign Ziwei. They did not cultivate Dao weapons, sea of consciousness, or take the form of humans. Instead, they began to develop into mutated demons and devil beasts. Fortunately, Ning Fan had not thought of a way to safely take away the Yin Heavy Wood for the time being. He did not mind staying in the Heaven Clusterfish clan and learning their ultimate technique that they did not pass on to others. As for the method to secretly take away the Yin Heavy Wood, he would have to think about it later to see if there was a solution that would satisfy both sides. In order to condense the Heaven Cluster Jade, one would need to absorb the water elemental power between heaven and earth. If it is an ordinary void fragmentation realm cultivator, they would not be able to condense a single Heaven Cluster Jade without spending thousands of years. However, Ning Fan's cultivation base was extraordinary. In just 3 days he managed to condense a single Heaven Cluster Jade, causing the water elemental power around the city to decrease slightly. The so-called Heaven Cluster Jade was a transparent light talisman in the shape of a magatama. As soon as he condensed it, Ning Fan immediately embedded this light talisman on the sea-defying sword. Not long after that, an extremely small magatama talisman appeared on the body of the sea-defying sword. If one did not look closely, they would not be able to see it at all. Ning Fan scanned the sword with his spirit sense and found out that after embedding the Heaven Cluster Jade, the power of the sea-defying sword had indeed increased a little. Even though it was just a little, what if he embedded thousands of Heaven Cluster Jades on the sword? At the moment when Ning Fan condensed the first Heaven Cluster Jade, Elder Yu, who was in seclusion far away in the Elder's courtyard, suddenly sensed something. He opened his eyes abruptly and was dumbfounded. As a matter of fact, all the fish dwellings of the clan that he had arranged were secretly planted with restrictive spells. Whoever successfully condenses the Heaven Cluster Jade would be able to sense it and let him know. Elder Yu did not expect that Ning Fan would actually successfully condense the first Heaven Cluster Jade after just joining the Heaven Cluster Fish clan for 3 days. Isn't this speed a little too heaven-defying? If Ning Fan has the legendary bloodline of the Heaven Cluster Fish, he might be able to have such a cultivation speed when he attains the void fragmentation realm. However, according to his investigation, Ning Fan's fish blood was obviously very thin. Could it be that I have made a mistake in my judgment? Could it be that this young man has purposely concealed the grade of his bloodline as soon as he entered Goyu City? That must be the case. He must have found out that I like to kill the outstanding members of my clan for my cultivation before he came to Goyu City. That's why he purposely concealed it. A mere void fragmentation realm cultivator actually managed to hide from my eyes. I'm afraid he must have had some sort of fortuitous encounter. Besides, to have such a temperament, he is much stronger compared to the other low-grade members of the clan. What a pity! What a pity! No matter how many fortuitous encounters you have, you are still just a void fragmentation realm cultivator after all. You should just stay in this Goyu City and cultivate the Heaven Cluster Jade. The more Heaven Cluster Jades you condense, the greater the benefits I will gain when I kill you. I've decided to use you as my main ingredient to advance to the eternal immortal venerable realm. Elder Yu gave a sinister smile. He summoned a few big fish guards and gave them some instructions. Not long after, a large number of rewards were sent to Ning Fan's fish house. All of them were heavenly ingredients and earthly treasures that contained extremely strong water elemental power. They were helpful to the cultivation of the Heaven Cluster Jade. Many of them were extinct spiritual herbs that were hard to find in the Eastern Heaven. Ning Fan accepted these rewards without batting an eyelid. Of course, he knew that there was a restriction in the fish house which could sense the birth of the Heaven Cluster Jade. However, he did not put this restriction in his heart. When a person's strength is countless times stronger than his enemy, all schemes and tricks would lose their effect. Ning Fan was not afraid of how Elder Yu would scheme against him at all. Because in his eyes, Elder Yu was just a clown. All right. I'll use the enormous resources of your Heaven Cluster Fish clan for my cultivation. Chapter 11:24. Elder Yu gave him quite a lot of good items. Most of them were treasures that could increase the speed of his water element cultivation. 50 stalks of river dew grass. It could increase the speed of his water element cultivation by 50% for a certain period of time. 50 stalks of cold pond reeds. It could increase his water element cultivation speed by 80% for a certain period of time. 10 bottles of sea spirit frost. It could increase his water element cultivation speed by 1-fold for a certain period of time. 5 moon clam pearls. It could increase his water element cultivation speed by 5 times for a certain period of time. Among the pile of treasures, the best one was naturally the moon clam pearls. It was said that the moon clam clan was one of the 11 clans in the World River. They were often hunted by other clans for their pearls. Killing was the nature of the foreign clans. Even the members of the same clan would kill each other, let alone different clans. Hunting other clans for the sake of cultivation was a very common thing in the World River. It was not restrained by any morality. With the good items that Elder Yu gave him, Ning Fan's speed of refining the Heaven Jade was undoubtedly faster. In just one day, he had already condensed 3 pieces of Heaven Jade. On another day, the total number of Heaven Jade had reached 7 pieces. On the third day, Ning Fan's total number of Heaven Jade had reached 10 pieces. His cultivation had reached a bottleneck and he could no longer increase the number of Heaven Jade. The cultivation method that he had obtained was only the first volume of the Heavenly Sacred Scroll. Only by obtaining the second volume could he continue to cultivate the next 10 pieces of Heaven Jade. Freak. This young man is really a freak. In a total of 6 days, he actually finished cultivating all the contents of the first volume of the Heavenly Sacred Scroll. Even many second-step life immortals might not be able to cultivate 10 pieces of Heaven Jade. This young man actually already has the qualifications to start cultivating the second volume. Through the restrictive spells, Elder Yu grasped Ning Fan's cultivation progress and felt deeply shocked. After that, it was ecstasy. He had found a treasure. He wanted to make Ning Fan stronger. He wanted Ning Fan to cultivate more Heaven Jade. Then, he would kill Ning Fan and take the fruits of his cultivation. Guards! Give this fish scale of inheritance to fish house number 4926 of the 14th water channel in the lower city. Some servants were summoned by Elder Yu. When they saw that Elder Yu was going to reward Ning Fan again, they all sneered, mocking Ning Fan's fate. That little brat called 4926 probably doesn't know that he's being targeted. Perhaps he's still feeling complacent about obtaining Old Yu's favor? Stupid 4926. It seems like this kid will never have the chance to break through the void fragmentation realm and set foot on the second step in this lifetime. The number that the servants mentioned was the serial number that Ning Fan had obtained after joining the Heaven Cluster Fish clan. Low-level clansmen didn't deserve to have names. This was the rule of all water clansmen. The fact that he had a serial number within 10,000 was enough to show how much Elder Yu valued him. Unfortunately, no one would be envious of Ning Fan being valued by Elder Yu. Because in Goyu City, everyone knew that Elder Yu loved to harm his own people. The better Elder Yu treated someone, the more he would scheme against that person. Within a few days, Ning Fan had been rewarded several times by Elder Yu. This kind of preferential treatment was not luck, but bad luck. The second fish scale of inheritance was sent to Ning Fan's fish house without Ning Fan's request. Ning Fan could not help but laugh. This Elder Yu is really a good person. He did not even need me to ask and he already sent me what I wanted. Since Elder Yu was so cooperative, Ning Fan could not bear to eliminate him after the matter is over. Ning Fan swallowed the fish scale of inheritance and obtained the second volume of the Heaven Cluster's Sacred Scroll. Other than the cultivation methods from the nascent soul realm to the peak thought fragmentation realm, the second volume also included the cultivation methods of the 10 heavenly jade hooks and beyond. Aside from the cultivation methods of the second volume of the heavenly jade hooks were exactly what Ning Fan needed. With the help of the second volume's contents, Ning Fan's total number of heavenly jade hooks reached 13 after one day. 10 days later, his total number of heavenly jade hooks reached 49. 1 month later, his total number of heavenly jade hooks reached 100. Once again, he encountered a bottleneck in his cultivation. In just 1 month, he had actually finished cultivating all the contents of the second volume of the heavenly jade hooks. 1 month. This kid used only 1 month to finish cultivating all the contents of the second volume of the heavenly jade hooks. Elder Yu was so excited that he did not know what to say. One should know that in the entire Heaven Clusterfish clan, there were not many people who could finish cultivating all the contents of the second volume of the heavenly jade hooks. Among those who had more than 100 heavenly jade hooks, there were only 60 to 70 of them in the entire clan. Moreover, all of them were experts above the true immortal realm. They had to cultivate for hundreds of thousands of years to reach their current level. Ning Fan, on the other hand, only used slightly more than 1 month to finish cultivating what others would take hundreds of thousands of years to do. Perhaps only the legendary sacred blood heavenly fish could match his speed. Could it be? Could it be? Even though this kid's cultivation base is low, he is the sacred blood heavenly fish that only appears once in tens of millions of years? If that's the case, if I kill him, won't I have a chance to seize his bloodline and evolve into the sacred blood heavenly fish? Nurture him. I must nurture him even more before devouring him. Someone, give this fish scale of inheritance to 4926. By the way, he seems to be running out of spiritual herbs. Give him another batch. No. You gave him the wrong one. This time, I won't give you the same spiritual herbs as last time. The third volume is much more difficult to cultivate. It requires higher-grade spiritual herbs to speed up the process. Come here. Take my badge and go to the clan vault to get a batch of 5 million years old spiritual herbs. There's no need to inform the 3 immortal venerables. They are busy cultivating. Don't disturb them. What a joke. Elder Yu did not want the immortal venerables in the clan to know that he was scheming against a sacred blood heavenly fish. That was his personal prey. If the 3 immortal venerables knew about this, they would definitely snatch the prey from him. There would be no chance for him. Not long after that, under Ning Fan's half-smile, another group of attendants came to him and brought him cultivation materials. Firstly, it was the fish scale of inheritance that contained the contents of the third volume of the heavenly sacred scroll. Secondly, it was a large batch of higher-grade heavenly and earthly treasures. Moon clam pearls, 50 of them. They can increase one's cultivation speed of the water element by 5 times for a certain period of time. Leech pearls, 50 of them. They can increase one's cultivation speed by 6 times. Dragon breath pearls, 20 of them. They can increase one's cultivation speed by 7 times. Immortal venerable mermaid's tears, one of them can increase one's cultivation speed by 8 times. The items that Elder Yu gave him this time were obviously better than the previous ones. However, Ning Fan's focus was not on those items but the mermaid's tears. Mermaid's tears? There was a legend in ancient times that the tears of mermaids could turn into pearls. It turned out to be true. However, I didn't expect that mermaids' tears could actually increase one's cultivation speed of the water element to such a high degree. Even though they were merely at the level of an immortal venerable, they could increase one's cultivation speed by 8 times, Ning Fan muttered to himself. There seems to be an immortal emperor mermaid imprisoned in my profound Een world. I wonder if her tears will turn into pearls if I make that woman cry. If that's the case, I can probably mass-produce mermaids' tears at the level of an immortal emperor. As soon as this joking thought appeared, Ning Fan threw it to the back of his mind. It was because he felt that it was very easy to cultivate the Heaven Hook Jade. There was no need to do such a boring experiment that would make a woman cry. However, who would have thought that it would become very difficult to cultivate the third volume of the Heaven Hook Jade? His progress was much slower than before. Ning Fan used the Moon Clam Pearl to assist his cultivation. He ate 5 pearls in a day, but he did not manage to cultivate a single Heaven Hook Jade. Using the Moon Clam Pearl, which increased his cultivation speed by 5 times, Ning Fan used 4 days to cultivate a single Heaven Hook Jade. Then, it was the Leech Pearl. It took Ning Fan 3.5 days to cultivate another Heaven Hook Jade. After that, it was the Dragon Breath Pearl. However, it also took him 3 days to cultivate a single heaven hook jade. Slow. It's too slow. Previously, when he cultivated the heaven hook jade, he could cultivate a few heaven hook jade in a day. Why did his cultivation speed become so much slower when he reached the 3rd volume? Ning Fan was very dissatisfied with his current cultivation speed. However, he did not know that the cultivation speed he displayed had already shocked Elder Yu to the point where he could not be any more shocked. After seeing that Ning Fan could still maintain a cultivation speed of 1 heaven hook jade every few days after cultivating the 3rd volume, Elder Yu could no longer find any adjectives to describe Ning Fan's monstrous level. One has to know that the first 2 volumes of the Heavenly Sacred Scroll were just basic cultivation methods. As long as one cultivates them step by step, anyone would be able to cultivate them successfully. The only difference was the amount of time required. However, from the 3rd volume onwards, the cultivation of the Heavenly Sacred Scroll would test a cultivator's comprehension ability. Usually, only 1 or 2 people would be able to cultivate it successfully among 100 people. The rest were limited by their comprehension ability and did not even have the qualifications to cultivate it. Even if they were able to cultivate it, their cultivation speed would not be too fast. From the 3rd volume onwards, the cultivation speed of the Heaven Hook Jade was no longer related to the grade of one's bloodline. The more important factor was the cultivator's comprehension ability. Even the legendary Heavenly Sacred Bloodfish would require several months or even years to cultivate a single Heaven Hook Jade after reaching the 3rd volume. For someone like Elder Yu, who had the grade of his bloodline and aptitude, he could only cultivate a single Heaven Hook Jade every 10,000 years through the 3rd volume. He had lived for several million years, but he still had not finished cultivating the 3rd volume. It showed how difficult it was to cultivate this volume. However, what kind of cultivation speed did Ning Fan have? When he reached the 3rd volume, he could actually maintain a cultivation speed of 1 Heaven Hook Jade every few days. This was already more monstrous and heaven-defying than the Heavenly Sacred Bloodfish. Putting aside the grade of his bloodline, this young man's comprehension ability was probably unprecedented in the history of the Heavenly Sacred Bloodfish. According to this young man's cultivation speed, if there are sufficient spiritual herbs, he will most likely be able to finish cultivating the 3rd volume within 10 years. Even if there are no spiritual herbs, he can also finish cultivating the 3rd volume within 100 years. Even though my clan's vault is rich, my authority is very limited. It's impossible for me to give him too many precious spiritual herbs to cultivate the 3rd volume. Another thing is, if I give him too many precious spiritual herbs, it will definitely attract the attention of the 3 immortal venerables in my clan. When that time comes, I won't be able to monopolize this young man. Yes, I should plan slowly. I will give this young man 100 years to slowly cultivate the 3rd volume. After 100 years, I will kill this young man and seize his bloodline. Then I will officially break through the bottleneck of the immortal venerable realm. In another 100 years, I will be able to become an immortal venerable. Ning Fan did not know how overjoyed Elder Yu was at the moment. Even if he knew, he would not be concerned. The 3rd volume contained all the methods to cultivate up to 1,000 pieces of Heaven Hook Jade. According to Ning Fan's current cultivation speed, he estimated that he would need at least 6 to 7 years to finish cultivating the 3rd volume. 6 to 7 years? Sorry, I don't have that much time to stay in Hooking Jade City now. Who knows when those immortal emperors of the alien races will come out of the water again to seek revenge on me. Ning Fan decided to use the one and only mermaid's tear to assist his cultivation. This was the pearl tear of an immortal venerable mermaid. Even though its effect on improving water element cultivation was stronger than the dragon breath pearl, there was a limit to its effect. Even after using this mermaid's tear, Ning Fan's cultivation speed did not increase by much. Originally, he wanted to wait and see if Elder Yu would give him some better cultivation materials. Unfortunately, after this batch of materials, Elder Yu did not give him any more precious spiritual herbs. Even if he did, he only gave him some ordinary spiritual herbs. It seems like I can't just rely on the Heavenly Sacred Bloodfish clan to provide me with resources for my cultivation. Ning Fan suddenly closed his eyes and pretended to be asleep. It seemed like he had fallen asleep due to exhaustion from cultivation. In fact, Ning Fan's primordial spirit left his body and secretly flew into the profound Yin world without Elder Yu's detection. He did not have much time to waste at the bottom of the Realm River. As such, he needed better things to help him increase his cultivation speed and complete the third volume as soon as possible. In the end, he still set his sights on a floor. At this moment, a floor was imprisoned in a solitary cell in the Repentance Palace. Her limbs were bound by the chains of enchantment and her cultivation base was sealed. She could not move at all. She suppressed the intolerable torture of the enchantment technique in her body. Her fair face was filled with an abnormal redness. She kept twisting her fishtail, opening and closing her mouth, exhaling hot air and letting out a moan from time to time. Uncomfortable. It's too uncomfortable. That damned little thief Ning Fan. How dare he humiliate me like this? If I let him escape alive, I will definitely teach him a lesson. With a creak, the door of the cell opened. Ning Fan's primordial spirit flew into the cell and stopped in front of a floor. Even though a floor had never seen Ning Fan's primordial spirit before, how could she not recognize him? She suppressed her moan and scolded him. "Es despicable. Who humiliated the woman? What kind of man are you? Despicable? You and the other members of the water race colluded with my companions and lured me into a trap. You even gathered 16 immortal emperors of the water race and more than 1,000 experts of the water race to besiege me. I didn't even call you despicable, but you called me despicable first. If being a little cruel to the enemy is despicable, then I am despicable. So what? Besides, what kind of woman are you? I'm just humiliating a fish. You don't even have legs. I won't even know where to start if you become my cauldron. You are the fish. You are the cauldron. I am a noble mermaid. I am an existence that is higher than the descendants of Zido." Aflora was so angry that she almost choked. However, her mind became clearer and her tongue became sharper. How could she not be angry? Ning Fan actually compared me to a lowly fish and even called me a cauldron. Damn it. This man is too hateful. I really want to cut him into pieces. Seeing that Aflora was angry, Ning Fan revealed a satisfied smile. If it were any other time, he would naturally disdain to talk nonsense with his enemies. However, he came here today specifically to bully Aflora. Thus, he was not stingy with his words. He wanted to humiliate and anger her. It would be best if she could be angered to tears. If she cries, wouldn't there be mermaid tears? Unfortunately, how could a dignified immortal emperor cry so easily? Of course, it was impossible for her to shed tears just because of a few words from Ning Fan. Ning Fan continued to provoke Aflora with his words. Even though she was angry, she simply closed her eyes. Out of sight, out of mind, she completely ignored this annoying Ning Fan. She did not look like she was going to cry at all. Seeing that, Ning Fan shook his head helplessly. It seemed like it was impossible to make Aflora cry using civilized methods. In that case, he could only use uncivilized methods to make her cry. Of course, if this woman is willing to cry on her own accord and give him some mermaid tears, he would also be happy to save himself the trouble. Even though he knew that the chances were slim, he still planned to discuss it with Aflora. "Your name is Aflora, right? After I learned the language of the water race, I found out that the original meaning of Aflora is the most beautiful woman in the water realm. It's a very beautiful name. Let me introduce myself. My name is Ning Fan. I want to discuss something with you." There was no response. However, Aflora's heart was frightened by Ning Fan's words. What nonsense is this man talking about? How does he know the meaning of my name? He learned the language of the water race? How is that possible? Who taught him that? One should know that the water race would rather die than impart their language to the cultivators of the Eastern Heaven. Doing so is equivalent to abandoning their honor. But why does this man know the language of the water race? Could it be that there is actually a traitor among the water race? It's like this. I need some mermaid tears for my cultivation. You are an immortal emperor. Your tears should be very helpful for the cultivation of the water element. Even though we are enemies, I am still willing to give you a choice. Are you willing to cry some tears for me or force me to make you cry? There was still no response. However, Aflor suddenly opened her eyes and examined Ning Fan in disbelief. When she examined him, she actually sensed the Heaven Hook Jade Chi of the Heaven Cluster Fish clan from him. All of a sudden, she understood why Ning Fan wanted to ask for the mermaid tears from her. It was actually to cultivate the Heaven Hook Jade. How did you cultivate the Heaven Hook Jade? You should know that the water race would rather die than impart the abilities of our ancestors to our enemies. Even though the Heaven Clusterfish clan is weak, it is impossible for us to do such a thing that forgets our ancestors. Could it be that the Heaven Clusterfish clan has actually betrayed the oath of their ancestors? You don't have to care about how I cultivated the Heaven Hook Jade. All you need to do is cry and give me some mermaid tears. Impossible. I am a noble mermaid. It is impossible for me to help my enemies. You can forget about getting my tears. Aflor said stubbornly. Sure enough, it's useless to discuss it. It seems like I can only take it myself. Ning Fan narrowed his eyes and a cold light flashed across them. Even if you torture me, I won't shed a single tear for you. If you don't believe me, you can try it. Aflor sneered with disdain. There were two things about the mermaid race that were praised by the world the most. Firstly, tears could turn into pearls. Secondly, mermaids had strong bones. Mermaids bleed but not shed tears. It was extremely difficult to obtain their tears. Even if Ning Fan were to kill her by 1,000 cuts and cut her into sashimi today, she was confident that she would not shed a single tear. I've heard of the legends of mermaids. If it's just pain, it probably won't make you cry. Since that's the case, Ning Fan's primordial spirit flew closer and slowly touched the back of Aflor's hand with his small hand. After being touched by Ning Fan, Aflor's face instantly turned pale. She knew how Ning Fan was going to get her tears. He didn't intend to torture her, but to humiliate her body. As noble as she had never been touched by a man like this before. Even though Ning Fan was in his primordial spirit form, the feeling of touch was different from that of a real human body. She could still feel a numbing sensation on the back of her fair hand. She suddenly felt a sense of humiliation from being violated. Damn it! Damn it! I'm a noble mermaid and the goddess of the mermaid race. How can I be violated by a despicable ant of the eastern heaven in this place? How dare you! How dare you! You're not allowed to touch me. Take your dirty hands away. Otherwise, I'll definitely tear you into pieces. It's just the back of your hand, but you actually have such a strong resistance. Could it be that you've never touched a man before? Ning Fan smiled. I'm a noble mermaid. I know etiquette, justice, integrity, and shame. Unlike you lowly women of the eastern heaven, I won't touch a man casually. It's only natural for me to feel conflicted. Aflor said proudly. Won't touch a man casually, huh? Then what's touching you now? Is it a ghost? Ning Fan's primordial spirit slowly stroked Aflor's hand. It was truly a pair of flawless hands. Every single one of her fingers had been touched by Ning Fan before. Aflor felt a great sense of shame. She was originally a noble mermaid, but now, she had become a plaything in Ning Fan's hands. Her purity was being tarnished bit by bit. Stop touching me! What will make you stop? After being imprisoned by Ning Fan, this was the first time Aflor actually gave in. It was just because she was not willing to let Ning Fan touch her skin, even if it was just her palm. It's very simple. As long as you cry and give me some mermaid tears to cultivate, I won't humiliate you anymore. I can even slightly improve your life in this prison. Impossible. You're the descendant of Zido. It's impossible for me to give you my tears. You're delusional. Aflor was unexpectedly stubborn in the face of her refusal to help her enemy. What a stubborn woman. Ning Fan's eyes turned cold. His primordial spirit began to touch Aflor's arm with its small hand. Aflor gently sucked in a breath of cold air. As Ning Fan touched her arm, that numb feeling moved up along her arm bit by bit. She was already under Ning Fan's bewitching technique. Now that Ning Fan touched her arm, her chi naturally became chaotic and she immediately let out soft gasps. This is just your arm. Are you really not going to give me your tears? You are my enemy. Do you know that I will never show mercy to my enemies? Don't talk nonsense. I won't give you my tears. Where are you touching? You can't touch here. Still not crying? I'm going to lift the shell on your chest. Don't you dare. If you dare to lift it. You actually dare to lift it. Don't pinch it. Don't pinch it. I'm going to kill you. Kill you. Take your dirty hands away from my face. If you touch my lips again, I'll bite off your fingers. Don't touch the back of my ears. This is a forbidden area. Half an hour later. You're actually still not giving in. I have to admit that I'm a little impressed by you. Unfortunately, we are enemies. It's impossible for me to show mercy to my enemies. Are you really not going to give me some tears? So comfortable. So comfortable. Listening to Aflor's intoxicated moans, Ning Fan felt like his head was going to explode. This damned woman. Why is she getting more and more used to it? Doesn't she have any awareness of being a prisoner? It turned out that when Aflor saw that she could not escape from Ning Fan's humiliation, she simply let go of her body and let Ning Fan play with her. Gradually, she began to enjoy the pleasure. The numbing touch all over her body seemed to have become the most wonderful touch in the world. It turns out that there is such pleasure between a man and a woman. Damn it. I actually didn't know about it before. This was a feeling that she had never experienced before. It was actually so wonderful. It was even more impossible to make her surrender with such a wonderful touch. It's fine if you kill me. It's fine if you humiliate my body. For the glory of my ancestors, I will definitely not give the precious mermaid tears to the last descendant of the Purple Battle Team. How about it? You can't do anything to me now, right? When I let go of the last trace of shame in my heart, I am already invincible and have no weakness at all. But it's so comfortable. Stupid descendant of the Purple Battle Team. Your touch makes me feel so comfortable. Come on. Give me something more exciting to make me feel even more comfortable. Could it be that you only know how to use your hands? However, even if I feel more comfortable, I won't give you any tears. Stupid descendant of the Purple Battle Team. You better give up. You can forget about getting any benefits from me. Aflor moaned and said complacently. Her body twisted from time to time to cater to Ning Fan's touch. Are you sure you want something more exciting? Ning Fan's eyes turned gloomy. His primordial spirit suddenly stopped touching Aflor. The happier she was, the more he could not make her surrender at all. What was the use of touching her again? Could it be that I really want something more exciting? Ning Fan began to ponder. Seeing Ning Fan admit defeat and stop humiliating her body, Aflor became even more complacent. She thought that she had forced him into a corner. No matter how exciting your technique is, you won't be able to make me cry. Why bother? Aflor said sarcastically. Her seductive eyes stared at Ning Fan. Her beauty was beyond compare. She was indeed worthy of being called the most beautiful person under the water. She did have her own beauty. However, her unparalleled beauty coupled with her sarcastic smile made Ning Fan feel uncomfortable no matter how he looked at her. Ning Fan did not feel like talking nonsense with Aflor. He originally wanted to leave some leeway for this woman. However, it seemed like she had mistaken his soft-heartedness as incompetence. All of a sudden, Ning Fan's primordial spirit opened its small mouth and directly bit the softness in front of it. Just as Aflor was feeling complacent, she suddenly felt a wet and warm sensation on her chest. Her expression immediately changed and she felt incomparably ashamed. It turned out that Ning Fan already disdained to touch her. How dare he? You're not allowed to suck. You can't. But, let go of my mouth. Don't. If you continue to suck here, you will be my son. Ning Fan's eyes turned even gloomier. This Aflor's mouth really stinks. She deserves to be punished. But, how dare you lick here? That's my navel. But, you're not allowed to lick my tail. It's too sensitive. I beg you. Not long after that, an incomparably comfortable moan echoed throughout the Repentance Palace. Aflor felt as if she had entered the clouds and was gasping for breath. Aflor, who had reached her peak, fell into a wonderful aftertaste. Her eyes were filled with tears of satisfaction. Those teardrops fell to the ground, turning into translucent pearls of chaotic origin, merman tears. Moreover, they were not ordinary mermaid tears. These were the tears of a half-step quasi-saint. Moreover, because they were tears of lust, they were rather special. Ning Fan picked up one of the tears and felt it. He was instantly overjoyed. If his senses were not wrong, this mermaid's tear could at least increase his cultivation speed in the water element by several hundred times. It was far superior to the immortal venerable mermaid's tear in the past. Seeing that your will is as firm as steel, I originally gave up on obtaining the mermaid's tear from you. Unexpectedly, you actually shed tears after reaching your peak. Ning Fan could not help but sigh at the wonders of creation. He had a lot of women. Some of them would cry for no reason after reaching their peak. That was not because they were sad. Instead, it was a personal physiological reaction. Unexpectedly, this mermaid named Aflor in front of him actually had such a physiological reaction. After being served by his tongue, she actually reached her peak and shed 4 drops of mermaid tears. Even though she said that she would not give them to him, her body was very generous. Shed tears? Are you stupid? How can I possibly shed tears? I don't even have the time to feel good. How can I possibly? Aflor opened her beautiful eyes in a mocking manner and giggled. Her beautiful eyes carried lingering charm. They were so moist and soft that water could drip from them. It was indescribably alluring. However, when she saw the mermaid's tear in Ning Fan's hand, she could no longer laugh. She shed tears. Why would she shed tears? Her Tao heart was as hard as iron. No amount of punishment could make her yield and make her feel pain. It was impossible for her to shed tears. But why, I'll accept your tears. When these 4 drops of mermaid's tears are used up, I will come again. As soon as he finished speaking, Ning Fan left with satisfaction. Aflor was the only one left in the prison cell. Her face was flushed red as she stood rooted to the ground. She felt extremely ashamed and resentful. She had already put down her dignity and integrity, but she still shed tears. Ning Fan had taken advantage of her. But why? If that was the case, wouldn't her painstakingly enduring Ning Fan's toying become a joke? Ning Fan, Ning Fan, Ning Fan, I'm going to kill you. Kill you. I won't allow you to use my tears to cultivate. But I'm so angry. Ning Fan ignored Aflor's anger. He thought that he had already tolerated this enemy very much. Now that he had obtained the mermaid's tears, his mood was extremely good. Thus, he did not care about Aflor's angry words. The mermaid's tears he obtained were not ordinary ones. They could actually increase one's water element cultivation speed by several hundred times. This was actually very rare at the bottom of the world river. Aflor's half-step quasi-sage realm cultivation base was only one of the reasons why the medicinal power of these mermaids' tears was so strong. Another reason was that these mermaids' tears were not ordinary tears. They were the lover's tears that female mermaids shed when they reached the peak of happiness. That was why their medicinal power was extraordinarily strong. If they were just ordinary tears, it would be impossible for them to have such a strong medicinal power. Even the tears that Aflor shed could only increase one's water element cultivation speed by 10 to 20 times. These 4 drops of lover's tears were extremely rare. However, Ning Fan did not know the difference between them. He only knew that he could begin cultivating the Heaven Hook Jade again after obtaining the mermaid's tears. In the past, he could only cultivate 1 Heaven Hook Jade after a few days. Now, after using Aflor's tears, he actually cultivated 14 Heaven Hook Jade in just 1 day. On the 2nd day, the total number of Heaven Hook Jade reached 133. On the 3rd day, 147. On the 4th day, 163. Lover's tears were not very durable. 1 drop would need to be used in a day. As for the 4 drops, it only took him 4 days to use them all up. Ning Fan had no choice but to send his primordial spirit out of his body again and enter the profound Een world, arriving at Aflor's prison cell. When he saw that Aflore's body had become thin and she had already fainted for a few days, he was shocked. For some unknown reason, this woman actually lost her nourishment and her chi and blood were so weak that she could not wake up. Could it be that this woman actually used up a large amount of chi and blood to provide me with 4 drops of tears? No wonder the medicinal power of the 4 drops of mermaid's tears was so strong. All of a sudden, Ning Fan felt a little guilty. Of course, it was just a little. Aflore was his enemy. He did not feel that there was anything wrong with being ruthless to his enemies. Old Devil had taught him to be ruthless to his enemies. That was what he had always done, but this woman, Ning Fan frowned. If he does not save Aflore, given her heterogeneous true spirit, she might not die but her cultivation base would definitely fall and her foundation would be damaged. After a brief moment of hesitation, Ning Fan decided to use some pills to save Aflore. After Aflore's complexion regained its rosy color, Ning Fan placed her on the stone bed in the prison cell. He sighed with a headache. I should let this mermaid rest today. When her chi and blood recover, I will come and take the mermaid's tears. Besides, even if I take the mermaid's tears in the future, I should nourish this woman first so that her chi and blood will not be depleted after the deed is done. Ning Fan pondered and left the prison cell. The moment his primordial spirit flew out of the prison cell, Aflore opened her eyes weakly. There was a hint of confusion in her eyes. She did not understand. Why did the descendant of Zido, who was known for being despicable and shameless, want to save her? If her cultivation base falls, wouldn't it be easier for him to control her? I don't understand. I'm so sleepy. Forget it. I'll sleep first. This damned life as a prisoner. Chapter 1125. Ning Fan did not delay his cultivation for too long. With Afro's strong physique, she recovered in just a few days. Ning Fan, who sensed it, entered the profound Een world again to ask Afro for the mermaid's tears. Of course, Afro was unwilling to give it to him. However, this time, she no longer insulted Ning Fan and the hostility on her face lessened a little. I don't know where you learned the language of the Water Clan and the heavenly gouging jade ability. But since you've learned them, I'm sure you already know the true identity of the Water Clan. I'm an immortal cultivator Z-Wei. I have an irreconcilable grudge against you, immortal cultivator Z-Do. The honor of my clan won't allow me to give my precious mermaid's tears to my enemy. Afro said stubbornly. So, you still intend to let me take my tears myself this time, right? This time, no matter how you humiliate me, I won't shed my tears. I was careless the last time. I will be more careful this time. Is that so? If that's the case, don't blame me for being rude to you. However, before I humiliate you again, you have to eat these pills first. What kind of pills are these? I won't eat them. There must be something wrong with them. You definitely want to harm me with them. Afro said angrily. Putting aside the fact that Ning Fan had humiliated her in every possible way, he even took out a pill to trick her today. How could she tolerate this? Ning Fan was too lazy to explain to this suspicious mermaid about the quality of the pills. These pills were used to strengthen one's foundation. They were used to prevent Afro from becoming weak and injured after her tears are taken away. However, if Aphrodite insisted on judging him with malice, he would not bother to explain himself to her. One of his primordial spirit hands pinched open Aphrodite's chin, while the other hand forced the pill into her mouth. Woo! Afro wanted to struggle and resist, but Ning Fan still forced her to swallow the pills. All of a sudden, Afro felt extremely humiliated. She closed her eyes in agony, waiting for the pills to take effect. She did not know whether these pills were poison or bewitching pills or some other despicable effect to control women. Currently, her spirit sense was locked by Ning Fan's bewitching technique and she could not sense anything. When she thought that she might become Ning Fan's slave after the pills dissolved, she was in so much pain that she wished she was dead. It wasn't until the medicinal power spread through her body that Aphrodite discovered to her surprise that these pills weren't harmful, but nourishing things. Why did you? You are trying to win my heart. Do you think I will yield if you treat me nicely? Let me tell you, this is impossible. The noble merfolk will not succumb to the threats of the enemy, nor will they succumb to the temptation of benefits. Afro said proudly. But that pride soon turned into soft moans under Ning Fan's teasing. 1 hour later, Ning Fan sent Aphrodite to the top of the clouds with his fingers, lips, and tongue. Once again, Aphrodite shed her lover's tears. It was probably because she had adapted to Ning Fan's teasing this time that she felt more comfortable than the last time. 5 drops of tears fell from her eyes, which was more than the last time. Since Ning Fan had fed her the Origin nurturing pill, she did not feel weak after crying. She just felt weak and powerless like an ordinary woman after they had reached their peak. Why? I'm clearly controlling it, why am I still crying? Aphrodite was enjoying the wonderful aftertaste while her heart was filled with unwillingness, and her delicate breathing was like that of an orchid. Ning Fan did not answer her question. He did not have the obligation to teach her about physiology. Little mermaid, have a good rest. I will come back 5 days later. You are the little mermaid. I am a mermaid. A mermaid. Afro cursed at Ning Fan's back. Then, she felt even more humiliated when she thought that Ning Fan would come back 5 days later. When will this damned life as a prisoner come to an end? With the help of Afro's mermaid tears, Ning Fan's cultivation progressed at lightning speed. 5 days later, the number of heaven gujads he had reached 236. He entered the Mystic Een world again. No one knew what he did with Aphrodite in the Mystic Een world. However, this time, he brought out 6 drops of mermaid's tears. Time passed slowly. 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. Ning Fan's number of heaven gujads reached a bottleneck again. It had reached a terrifying 1,000 pieces. He had finally finished cultivating the 3rd volume of the Heavenly Sacred Scroll. It has only been 2 months, and this young man has actually finished cultivating the 3rd volume, which I couldn't even finish in a few million years. Elder Yu's heart was filled with a strong sense of defeat. But more than that, he was excited. As long as he kills Ning Fan and takes away the fruits of his cultivation, he would be the final winner instead of the insignificant void fragmentation realm Ning Fan. At first, I thought that he would need 100 years to finish cultivating the 3rd volume without the precious spiritual herbs that I provided. I didn't expect him to be so fast. It's a pity that I only have the first 3 volumes of the Heavenly Sacred Scroll. I don't have the 4th volume. Otherwise, I can give him the 4th volume and let him continue cultivating it. After that, I will deal with him. If I recklessly ask the 3 immortal venerables in my clan for the 4th volume, it will certainly attract their attention. At that time, I won't be able to enjoy this young man alone. For the entire night, Elder Yu was thinking about this matter. After thinking about it for a few days, he finally made up his mind to kill Ning Fan and stop feeding him. Someone, summoned the 4926 to the elder's courtyard. As soon as he gave the order, the attendants of the elder's courtyard understood that Elder Yu was going to kill Ning Fan. No one would sympathize with Ning Fan. This was the Water Clan world where the strong preyed on the weak. The weak should be eaten by the strong. Very soon, the attendants brought Ning Fan to the elder's courtyard and left. In the vast water palace, only Elder Yu sat on the main seat. Below him was Ning Fan, who had turned into his fish body with a smile on his face. Seeing that Ning Fan was still able to smile in such a critical moment, Elder Yu had a bad feeling. That feeling was as if something was out of his control. It's impossible. No, that's impossible. He must be thinking too much. The young man is just an insignificant first-step void fragmentation realm cultivator, while I am the 4th expert of the Heavenly Sacred Fish Clan, a dignified peak thought fragmentation realm being. It's impossible for this young man to escape from my control. You should have heard of my evil reputation. Elder Yu said bluntly. I have indeed heard of it. You should also know that the reason why I asked you to come here today is to eat you with a secret technique. As he spoke, Elder Yu's eyes flashed with ferocity. I do know. Don't blame me for being ruthless. The Z-Way world where my ancestors lived is a place where the strong survive and the weak perish. The strong hunt the weak. It's the tradition of our ancestors. If you're weak, you deserve to be eaten by me. If you're stronger than me, I'm naturally willing to be eaten by you. Today, I must eat you. I hope that you will cooperate with me. If you resist, the benefits that I will obtain will be lesser. Since you're going to die either way, why don't you give up resisting and help me achieve my goal? If you cooperate, I can let your soul return to samsara. If you resist, I will destroy your soul and you will never be able to reincarnate. After saying so much, Elder Yu was obviously trying to force Ning Fan to be eaten by him willingly. Ning Fan did not pay attention to Elder Yu's long-winded speech. He just stared at Elder Yu calmly. His stare made Elder Yu's scalp go numb. He felt a little uneasy, but he could not understand why. After a long time, Ning Fan opened his mouth again. If I'm stronger than you, I can also eat you, right? That's right. The heaven Gujus of my clan can increase their cultivation realm by devouring each other. Even the density of their bloodline can be slightly increased by devouring each other. If you have the ability, you can naturally eat me too. However, you don't have that ability. You're just a small void fragmentation realm cultivator while I'm a high and mighty thought fragmentation realm cultivator. Who told you that I'm just a void fragmentation realm cultivator? Under Ning Fan's control, the great momentum of heaven and earth suddenly sealed all the space in the courtyard of the elders. No chi could leak out from within. Then, under Elder Yu's terrified gaze, Ning Fan turned from a large fish into a young man in white robes in a flash of light. As he stood there, it was as if he was the sky of this place. The monstrous baleful chi around his body almost made Elder Yu stop breathing. A second ago, he was still arrogant and conceited. In the next second, he was trembling like a sieve, looking at Ning Fan as if he was some kind of peerless, ferocious beast. Human cultivator. You're not a cultivator of my clan. You're a cultivator of the Eastern Heaven. How dare you sneak into my clan and secretly learn my clan's ultimate technique? You're an ancient immortal revered. Even immortal emperors have killed many of such baleful chi. I've only heard of such a heaven-defying immortal revered from the Eastern Heaven. You're the white-robed Yama, who captured 7 dragon horse immortal emperors and Lord Aphrodite alive. White-robed Yama was the title given to Ning Fan by the foreign races of the 11 Paths after he committed a series of major crimes. This title had already spread across the 11 Paths. Rumor has it that the white-robed Yama cultivated a type of cross-shaped halo. Once the halo is activated, it could kill immortal emperors. It was also rumored that the white-robed Yama had a lot of innate magic treasures. He had 3 mid-grade innate magic treasures. If an immortal emperor of the Water Clan is alone or encounters the white-robed Yama in groups of 2 or 3, they must flee. They must not fight against him. Otherwise, it would be difficult for them to escape death. Of course, Elder Yu had heard of Ning Fan's ferocious name. However, he had never imagined that the infamous King Yama would appear in front of him in such a terrifying manner. This feeling was like a beautiful dream that he had imagined for many days, turning into the most terrifying nightmare in an instant. Ning Fan's eyes merely moved a little. Elder Yu thought that Ning Fan was going to kill him. He was instantly shocked and attacked in a panic. Heaven go you! All of a sudden, Elder Yu unleashed all of his cultivation base, manifesting hundreds of hooking jade talismans that he had painstakingly cultivated for his entire life and shot them at Ning Fan. The power of these hooking jade talismans was extraordinary. When they landed on Ning Fan's body in a concentrated manner, they could not even leave a scratch on his physical body. Ning Fan's physical body was just too strong. It was not something that these hooking jade talismans could harm. Upon seeing this, how could Elder Yu not know that the gap between him and Ning Fan was just too huge? He could not even hurt Ning Fan at all. Without any hesitation, he directly broke the door and tried to escape from the elder's courtyard. However, it was already too late. He was blocked by layers of great force waves and could not escape. Spare me! Elder Yu chose to surrender when he had nowhere to run. He knelt in front of Ning Fan with his back straight. He was actually different from those low-grade heaven cluster fishes that were not afraid of death. He was quite flexible. Ning Fan frowned. Perhaps it was because he had spent too much time with Aphrodite, who would rather die than submit. He actually felt a little displeased when he saw her kneeling down and submitting to him. Of course, he did not mind taking this opportunity to make Elder Yu his confidant. With this person's help, it would be more convenient for him to cultivate in the Goyu city. So, why not? However, there must be a precondition. Since Aphrodite did not violate this bottom line, Ning Fan was still very polite to her even though he maintained his hostility towards her. However, he did not know if this elder Yu had violated this bottom line or not. Have you eaten human flesh before? Do you think it tastes terrible? Ning Fan suddenly asked. No. It's not terrible. In fact, it's very delicious. Those travelers who pass by are simply a heaven-sent delicacy. Does my lord want to eat human flesh? I still have some dried meat made from human flesh in my storage. I have been keeping it for a long time. At this moment, in order to survive, Elder Yu was even willing to take out the dried meat that he had kept for many years for Ning Fan to eat. However, before he could finish his words, he saw killing intent flashing in Ning Fan's eyes. He no longer had the chance to finish his words. A cold light flashed. Elder Yu's large fish head was cut off by a sea-defying sword that was inlaid with 1,000 pieces of heaven Goyu. The wind of the sword blew past, carrying the salty smell of sea waves. At the moment when the sea-defying sword cut off Elder Yu's head, the power of the heaven Goyu wreaked havoc inside Elder Yu's body, directly killing his demon soul inside his body. It killed him with a single slash and even severed the life force of his demon soul. With the power of the sea-defying sword, it was not strange for it to kill a peak thought fragmentation realm cultivator. However, Ning Fan still keenly sensed that this sword was different from before. The power of the sea-defying sword that was inlaid with 1,000 pieces of heaven Goyu was more than 2 times stronger than before. The difference might not be obvious when killing a peak thought fragmentation realm cultivator. However, if it is a battle between immortal emperors, the effect would certainly be extremely obvious. Even though I wanted to spare your life, you just had to eat those travelers of the 4 heavens. If I let you live, I won't be able to give an explanation to my subordinates who died in the Boundary River. This is my bottom line. Since you have crossed it, it's better for you to die. After killing Elder Yu, Ning Fan devoured the hundreds of pieces of heaven Goyu that Elder Yu cultivated using the cultivation method of the Heavenly Cluster's sacred scroll. When the Heavenly Cluster fishes devoured the heaven Goyu of their own clan, the benefits were not equal. If a person with low attainment in the heaven Goyu devoured someone with high attainment, the benefits would be slightly greater. After devouring a few hundred pieces of the opponent's heaven Goyu, they would roughly be able to produce 1 to 200 pieces of heaven Goyu. However, if a person with high attainment devours a person with low attainment, the benefits would be much lesser. After devouring hundreds of pieces of Elder Yu's heaven Goyu, Ning Fan actually only increased the number of his heaven Goyu to 10-22 pieces. Sure enough, devouring was just a minor Dao. Cultivation was the true foundation. In order to quickly increase the number of heaven Goyu, one still had to cultivate diligently through the correct cultivation method. Elder Yu was the 4th strongest expert of the Heavenly Cluster Fish clan. His death naturally could not be concealed. Ning Fan also did not plan to conceal Elder Yu's death. He turned back into his fish form and removed the Great Force seal around the courtyard of elders. As soon as he swam out of the courtyard, he saw countless large fishes outside the courtyard. All of them were the experts of the Heavenly Cluster Fish clan who had sensed Elder Yu's death and rushed to this place. Among them, there were even 3 immortal venerables of the Heavenly Cluster Fish clan. In the Heavenly Cluster Fish clan, immortal venerables of the Heavenly Cluster Fish clan were as rare as phoenix feathers and qilin horns. Their status was extremely high. For 3 immortal venerables to come out at the same time, there must have been a huge change in the clan. Seeing Ning Fan walk out of the courtyard of elders alive, a large white fish among the 3 immortal venerables asked in a deep voice, "Why did you kill the dignified Elder Yu? Do you know that this is a serious crime in the clan?" Even though the Heavenly Cluster Fish clan did not forbid members of the clan from killing each other, those who offend their superiors still had to be severely punished. Ning Fan was too lazy to talk nonsense with this immortal venerables. He already knew that killing Elder Yu would cause some trouble. But so what? What serious crimes? Could they restrain him? Would he obediently accept the punishment from these immortal venerables of the Heavenly Cluster Fish clan? It would be great if they knew what was good for them. Otherwise, he did not mind letting these 3 immortal venerables of the heavenly cluster fish clan follow in Elder Yu's footsteps and die together. When the time comes, he would kill all the leaders of the heavenly cluster fish clan. Then, he could seize the opportunity to seize a high position and become the master of the heavenly cluster fish clan. This is not a bad idea. If he becomes the leader of the heavenly cluster fish clan, it would certainly be much more convenient for him to do things in this place. It would also be beneficial for him to plot to obtain the 800 million in heavy wood in this place. Of course, the 3 immortal venerables of the heavenly cluster fish clan did not know that Ning Fan, whom they were only slightly afraid of, was now filled with killing intent towards them. Another red immortal venerables of the heavenly cluster fish clan said, "This young man can kill Elder Yu. Even though he is not as good as us, he is still a talent. If we kill him directly according to the rules of the clan, it will be a waste to pay with his life. Brothers, have you forgotten that we have a better way to punish this kid?" Another black immortal venerable said, "It is indeed a waste to kill him directly. However, this young man is too ferocious. Even you and I will feel fearful when we see him. If we let him live, he will always be a disaster. When he becomes stronger, won't he have the guts to attack us the next day? How about this? Lock him up in the underground mine and let him receive the wood dragon punishment for 100,000 years. What do you think?" Good. This is a great idea. The wood dragon punishment can perfectly strip away a person's bloodline, cultivation base, and abilities. When we kill the sinner, it will also bring us some benefits. However, it will take too long. Forget it. It's just 100,000 years. We can afford to wait. When the time comes, this young man's bloodline and the heavenly Goyu will all belong to us. The 3 of us will have to share these benefits equally. The 3 immortal venerables plotted against Ning Fan as if there was no one else around them. They were not afraid that Ning Fan would be resentful after hearing their plan. As soon as the countless fishes behind the 3 immortal venerables heard that Ning Fan was going to be locked up in the underground mine to receive the wood dragon punishment, all of them burst into laughter. They were laughing at Ning Fan's sad fate. Those who received the wood dragon punishment had never come back alive. They would die without a doubt. Moreover, their cultivation base and abilities would be stripped away for others to devour after they die. Their laughter spread across Goyu City. Those who did not know what was going on might think that something joyous had happened in the city. Ning Fan was slightly stunned. Did I hear it wrongly? These 3 foolish immortal venerables of the heavenly cluster fish clan are planning to lock me up in the heavy wood mine under Goyu City? Wait a minute. Could this be a great opportunity to obtain the underground gloomy heavy wood? I can openly approach the Orvane. If that's the case, I need to think about it carefully. Is it more appropriate to kill the 3 immortal venerables of the heavenly cluster fish clan and seize their power? Or to accept the punishment obediently? 4926. Do you have any objections to our decision to sentence you to receive the wood dragon punishment? No? It seems like this young man still doesn't know how terrifying the wood dragon punishment is. He actually has no objections. This is really great. Then, you can just obediently be locked up in the underground mine by us. Someone, open the underground entrance and lock this young man up in the prison of the wood dragon mine. Understood. One could wear out iron shoes in fruitless searching only to find it by chance without even looking for it. The reason why Ning Fan did not make a move on the heavy wood in this place was because the heavy wood mine was blocked by the restriction formation set up by the Realm River Quasi-Saint. The activation of the restriction formation would not obey anyone's order. It would only obey the order of the Quasi-Saint who placed the restriction formation. Even the immortal venerables of the heavenly cluster fish clan did not have the right to open the restriction formation and enter the underground mine at will. If Ning Fan uses brute force to break the restriction formation, the Realm River Quasi-Saint who placed the restriction formation would know immediately. At that time, if a powerful enemy of the Realm River Quasi-Saint was attracted because of this matter, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, there was no need to worry about that now. The Heavenly Clusterfish clan actually took the initiative to burn incense and pray and obtain the permission of the Realm River Quasi-Saint to open the entrance of the restriction formation. After that, Ning Fan was locked up in the underground alone. There was not even a single guard around him. What a joke! Which cultivator of the Heavenly Clusterfish clan would be willing to die with Ning Fan underground? Naturally, no one came to guard Ning Fan. No one thought that Ning Fan could break the restriction formation of the Realm River Quasi-Saint and escape. Then, he could only die obediently under the Wood Dragon punishment. However, no one knew that Ning Fan being locked up underground was exactly what he wanted. Now, he could make a move on the gloomy wood in the ground without anyone noticing. Then, what should he do next to take away the 800 million in heavy wood in this place without being noticed by the Realm River Quasi-Saint? Chapter 1126. To any foreign race, the sunken wood mine at the bottom of the river was an absolute forbidden area. It was an important resource that was related to the prosperity of the race. Even though the Heavenly Fish clan was a small clan in the 11th path, according to Ning Fan's estimation, they also had a reserve of 800 million years of sunken wood, which was no less than 100 jin. This 100 jin was only referring to the sunken wood, which was 800 million years old. The sunken wood, which was younger than this age, could be found everywhere in the underground. There were tens of thousands of jin of sunken wood, which was between 5 to 700 million years old. There were millions of jin of sunken wood, which was between 1 to 400 million years old. As for the sunken wood, which was below 100 million years old, they turned into countless crisscrossing dragon veins which spread under Goyu City, covering an area of several hundred li. To the ancient cultivators, only sunken wood, which was more than 800 million years old, could be used to concoct the limitless pill. The higher the age, the higher the quality of the sunken wood. 800 million years was just a benchmark. In fact, the best material for the limitless pill should be 1 trillion years old and above. The success rate would be higher. At this moment, Ning Fan was in a cell in the underground mine. The walls of the cell were filled with powerful formations of wood elemental power. Due to the high density of the wood elemental power, it even materialized in the air, turning into dark green wooden dragons which were as thick as a thumb. They were moving up and down in the cell. Those wooden dragons were not large in size. However, each of their eyes was extremely ferocious. From time to time, some of them would suddenly try to bite Ning Fan. Given the strength of Ning Fan's physical body, if he did not activate his protective golden light, his flesh would be bitten by these wooden dragons. Ning Fan scanned the area with his spirit sense and realized that those wooden dragons were actually condensed from the wood elemental power in this place for hundreds of millions of years. It was reasonable for the wooden dragons to be stronger after being nourished by the wood elemental power for hundreds of millions of years. After those wooden dragons bite a prisoner, they would extract the essence of the prisoner's flesh and blood as well as the essence of their abilities. After accumulating for 100,000 years, they could finally share the prisoner's cultivation base and abilities with others. This was the wooden dragon punishment that the few immortal venerables mentioned by the Heavenly Fish clan. This kind of punishment was not only practiced in the Heavenly Fish clan. Almost every other clan had this kind of punishment. Of course, in order to open the underground mine and punish the prisoners, they must first obtain the permission of the quasi-saints under the Great Divine Priest. Otherwise, they would not be able to open the tunnel of the mine. Who would have thought that I would have such a fortuitous encounter, to be imprisoned in the underground mine of Goyu City? The amount of sunken wood in this place is extremely huge. Among them, the sunken wood that is more than 800 million years old can be used to concoct the immeasurable elixir. The younger sunken wood is not very useful. As for the wood dragon in this place, it is condensed from the wood elemental force of the mine for hundreds of millions of years. If I swallow it, it will be very beneficial to the cultivation of my wood yang art. The only problem is that if I take away the 800 million gloomy sunken wood and devour the wood dragon, I might be sensed by other water path quasi-sages. It's one thing to devour the wood dragons. These wood dragons don't have the boundary river quasi-saints restrictions on them. They are formed naturally. Even if I have to devour these wooden dragons, it's not a problem. What was troublesome was that the 800 million gloomy sunken trees were at the pivot of the overall situation of the mine here. If I use brute force to take away the 800 million gloomy sunken wood, the layout of the earth veins here will be destroyed and there will be a huge change. At that time, I won't be able to hide it from the eyes and ears of the Boundary River quasi-saints. Ning Fan kept muttering to himself. All of a sudden, he thought of a very common folk game in the mortal world, Huarong Dao. It was a small game that allowed the general to escape from his pursuers by moving the chess pieces around. The thought process that was involved in the game made Ning Fan's eyes light up. Ning Fan activated his heavenly being law eye to its maximum. At the same time, he activated the secret word of force to its limit. In his eyes, the overall situation of the mine immediately turned into chess pieces of different sizes with different orbits. If he couldn't use brute force to take away the 800 million gloomy sunken trees that were located at the pivot of the pattern, then he could change the layout of the pattern in a small area and slowly make the 800 million gloomy sunken trees break away from the center of the pattern. Even some quasi-saints would find it hard to perfectly control the layout of the world in such a fine and detailed manner. If they are not careful, they would destroy the layout of the place. Ning Fan, on the other hand, was different. He was one of the few cultivators at the second level of the heavenly being realm during the age of Dharma decline. Moreover, he cultivated the supreme secret word, force. Although this matter was difficult for him, it wasn't something that he couldn't accomplish. 1 day passed. 2 days passed. 3 days passed. Ning Fan used the overall situation as a chess piece to secretly change the overall situation of the underground of Goyu City. However, no one noticed it. On the 5th day, he moved out the first piece of 800 million gloomy sunken wood from the mine. It was a huge piece of gloomy sunken wood that weighed 5 jin. On the 7th day, Ning Fan moved out another 4 jin of 800 million gloomy sunken wood. The 9th day, the 11th day, the 13th day, 1 month had passed. Ning Fan had stolen all 800 million gloomy sunken wood from the underground of Goyu City. There was a total of 134 jin of it. With the 800 million gloomy sunken wood in his hands, Ning Fan had already collected countless sets of the other materials needed to concoct the limitless pill. As long as he could find a 9th Revolution Gold Core Realm Pill Refinement Master, he would be able to obtain a large number of limitless pills. As a matter of fact, Ning Fan had captured quite a number of pill refinement masters of this level and kept them in his Joss Flame world. In the extreme pill sacred region, which Immortal Emperor did not have a few Gold Core Realm Pill Refinement Masters. In the past, Ning Fan had captured the followers of Immortal Emperors without restraint in the extreme pill sacred region and made them his Joss Flame slaves. Some of them were Gold Core Realm Pill Refinement Masters. However, he did not capture a single pill refinement master of the Sovereign Pill Realm. Therefore, the current Ning Fan actually did not lack people to concoct pills for him. Of course, if it's possible, he still hoped to concoct the limitless pill with his own hands instead of asking someone else to do it. Currently, he was already a 9th Revolution Silver Pill Refinement Master. As long as he takes another step forward, he would be qualified to concoct the limitless pill. Speaking of which, I have yet to use the peach branches, peach blossoms and peach fruits that I obtained from that primal core realm old man. Those things seem to be able to greatly enhance a pill refinement master's medicine soul. Ning Fan muttered to himself for a while and made up his mind. Then, he looked at the hundreds of wooden dragons that were flying up and down in the cell. With his abilities, he captured all of them. Considering that the sudden capture of these wooden dragons would greatly reduce the wood chi of the Een Heavy Wood Mine in this place, Ning Fan then set up a small-scale spirit-boosting formation in the cell. Its effect was to stimulate the wood chi of the mine by tens of times. At first glance, the density of the wood chi in Goyu City was still the same as before. Of course, this kind of stimulation had a time limit. Even though Ning Fan had used up a lot of rare and precious immortal materials, he could only make the spirit-boosting formation run for 1 to 200 years. When the spirit-boosting formation loses its effect, The things that happened in the Earth vein would certainly be discovered by the Boundary River Realm quasi-saints. However, that would be something that would happen 1 to 200 years later. For the time being, he did not need to worry about the matter being exposed. After doing all of these, Ning Fan entered the profound Yin world in a flash. After spending half a month, he finally refined all of the hundreds of wooden dragons. Even though his cultivation level did not increase, the Tao of Wood law of Yin and Yang was much stronger than before. It was slowly approaching the true sovereign realm. Seeing this, Ning Fan was naturally overjoyed. One should know that even though the divine, demon, devil, Yin and Yang that he cultivated possessed a certain level of power at the sovereign realm, it was still far from the might that a true sovereign realm expert should possess, let alone the so-called void of the sovereign realm. Cultivating the divine, demon, devil, Yin and Yang was just the first step. Next, he still needed to cultivate all of his Yin and Yang to the sovereign realm. At that time, the might of the ancient chaos great emperor's 27 Yin and Yang would truly be displayed. How difficult was it to cultivate to the sovereign realm? Of course, it was impossible for Ning Fan to directly cultivate to the sovereign realm just by devouring the hundreds of wooden dragons in this place. Even though the divine wood law of Yin and Yang was getting closer to the true sovereign realm, the distance between them was still extremely far. Those few immortal venerables and heavenly cluster fish probably would not have thought that the wooden dragons that they used to punish Ning Fan would be eaten by Ning Fan instead. After devouring the wooden dragons, Ning Fan began to refine the peach branches, peach blossoms and peach fruits of the primal pill Great Emperor. After another month, the grade of Ning Fan's medicine soul underwent a huge change. His medicine soul, which was originally at the 9 revolutions silver grade, had actually broken through to the 9 revolutions gold grade. In fact, it had even made great strides towards the emperor grade medicine soul. These peach branches, peach blossoms and peach fruits were harvested from the heaven and earth peach tree that the primal pill Great Emperor had spent his entire life to plant. He was reluctant to eat them himself. Hence, he kept them for future use. However, he did not expect that his entire life's efforts would eventually benefit Ning Fan. Ning Fan was initially surprised by the rapid improvement of his medicine soul. However, after considering that it was the result of the primal pill Great Emperor's lifetime's efforts, he felt that it was reasonable. The medicine soul of the 5-colored butterfly was filled with spirituality. It danced in the profound Yin world. He knew that it was time for him to concoct the measureless pill to improve his cultivation base. His 9th revolution golden grade medicine soul had just broken through, so his realm was still very shallow. However, if he could consolidate it through alchemy, his medicine soul would soon solidify. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. Ning Fan walked out of the profound Yin world and returned to his cell. After using up all the 800 million Yin sunken wood, he had refined a total of 20 batches of pills, and each batch contained 300 pills. Due to the fact that his medicine soul was unstable and it was his first time concocting the immeasurable pill, it was hard for him to guarantee his success rate. Out of 10 attempts, he would usually only succeed in 3 to 4 attempts. In the end, he harvested more than 2,000 immeasurable pills. Just the heavenly clusterfish clan, which was an immortal venerate force, had allowed him to obtain 2,000 immeasurable pills for free. Ning Fan inwardly guessed that if it was an immortal king force or an immortal emperor force, he would probably be able to obtain tens of thousands of immeasurable pills. For ordinary newly advanced immortal venerables, 2 immeasurable pills could only increase their magic power by 1 tribulation. For an ordinary first tribulation immortal venerable, it would take 4 immeasurable pills to increase their magic power by 1 tribulation. Using the same amount of immeasurable pills to increase the cultivation base of an ancient god who had already undergone the eternal tribulation was naturally not as effective as using them to increase the cultivation base of an ancient demon or ancient devil. However, because Ning Fan's crippled divine spirit body was too domineering, it would steal the medicinal effects of the immeasurable pills. Thus, after eating more than 2,000 immeasurable pills, the ancient demon's cultivation base only managed to increase its magic power by around 60 tribulations. The ancient demon's cultivation base was still very far away from breaking through the eternal tribulation. However, if Ning Fan were to rob a few more clans, it would only be a matter of time before the ancient demon and ancient devil broke through the eternal tribulation. Since the 800 million in sunken wood in this place had already been taken away by Ning Fan, there was naturally no need for him to stay in this place for a long time. The stone door of the dungeon was sealed by a quasi-saint realm restriction formation. There were only two ways to leave the dungeon. One was to break the restriction formation and go out directly. The other was to ask the people outside to burn incense and pray to the quasi-saint of the boundary river. The quasi-saint would then open the restriction formation. Of course, Ning Fan was not foolish enough to break the restriction formation of the quasi-saint realm to leave. If he wanted to leave, someone would naturally help him ask the quasi-saint realm to open the door. In the past, before he was imprisoned in the dungeon by the three immortal venerables, he had secretly cast an illusion technique on them. That illusion technique would not be activated immediately. It would only be activated when Ning Fan needed it. All right, three illusion servants. It's time for you to show up. Open the prison door for me. A demonic light flashed in Ning Fan's left eye. He activated the illusion technique across the domain. All of a sudden, the three immortal venerables who were cultivating in seclusion in their respective cave dwellings felt a sharp pain in their sea of consciousness. Then, their eyes became blank and they murmured to themselves, "We need to help Master open the prison door. We need to help Master open the prison door." Then, a scene that none of the members of the Heavenly Venerables could understand happened. Ning Fan, who was imprisoned in the dungeon by the three immortal venerables, was actually released. Moreover, the three immortal venerables even taught Ning Fan the contents of the 4th, 5th and 6th volumes of the Heavenly Sacred Scroll. After that, they gave Ning Fan a secret mission, asking him to conceal his identity and leave Goyu City to complete the mission in secret. The so-called secret mission was, of course, just a trick to deceive others. It was just a legitimate reason for Ning Fan to leave Goyu City. Under the astonished gazes of all the members of the Heavenly Venerables, the three immortal venerables took out countless precious treasures from the clan's treasury and handed them to Ning Fan. The reason was that the secret mission this time was too dangerous and they needed to provide Ning Fan with more resources in order to ensure the success of the mission. Even when Ning Fan took away most of the precious resources of the Heavenly Venerables and left Goyu City openly, no one knew what the secret mission that the three immortal venerables were talking about. As for the three immortal venerables who fell into the illusion technique, they did not realize that they had fallen into the illusion technique at all. Ning Fan's illusory technique only distorted the cognition of the three immortal venerables when it came to questions about himself. As for other things, it did not change the slightest bit. Hence, after the three immortal venerables let Ning Fan go, they continued to live leisurely like before. They did not feel anything unusual at all. Sometimes, illusion techniques were really useful. In the depths of the nest of the foreign races in the 6th water path. This was the waterway that passed through northern heaven. It was heavily guarded by the foreign races. No one knew that the great divine priest who was worshipped by countless members of the foreign races in the eastern border river was currently in the 6th waterway. He was an elderly man with a long beard who held a crescent blade in his hand. His hair was white like a snake and his eyes were purple with double pupils. His body was surrounded by the immense aura force of a second-level quasi-saint. Below him sat 5 first-level quasi-saints. All of them were famous figures in the foreign races. Unlike ordinary members of the foreign races, these quasi-saints had transformed into human form to cultivate. Each of their chi was vast and boundless. In front of the great divine priest and the 5 quasi-saints, ordinary immortal emperors were not qualified to sit at all. They could only stand and discuss matters. The great divine priest would only show up once every half a month to deal with some affairs. Currently, small-scale battles had broken out in all 12 waterways of the eastern border river. Battle reports would be sent back from time to time and were accumulated there, waiting for the great divine priest's judgment. Report: the Purple Forest Pass of the 5th waterway was breached 3 days ago. The Sea Dragon Pass of the 8th waterway was breached 4 days ago. It doesn't matter. Losing the pass is just a small matter. Everything is still going according to plan. My time is limited, so there's no need to report this kind of news, the great divine priest said indifferently. Report. The crown prince of the dragon horse, Long Angwa, rushed here from the 10th waterway to borrow the great divine priest's godly sea-calming needle. He has been waiting outside the temple for 7 days. He wants to borrow another treasure? The great divine priest frowned slightly and said unhappily, "Didn't he just borrow my severing fate sword and the cursed gourd? Why does he want to borrow the godly sea-calming needle again?" Great divine priest, I heard that the White King of Hell who caused chaos in the 11th waterway is extremely difficult to deal with. He used a Khanate mid-grade water treasure to break the ambush of Long Angwa and a dozen other immortal emperors. That's why Long Angwa came again to borrow the godly sea-calming needle to fight against the opponent's water treasure. Even Lady Aphrodite was captured by the White King of Hell. Her whereabouts are unknown. Oh? A mere immortal sovereign of 10,000 years actually has a Khanate mid-grade treasure? He even captured Aphrodite, a half-step quasi-sage? The great divine priest was visibly moved. I heard he used a bewitching technique. The servant explained. So it was a bewitching technique. Then there's nothing to worry about. However, this White King of Hell is truly audacious. First, he broke the river diagram mirror I used for the sea sacrifice, delaying my plan. Then he captured Aphrodite, a member of the sacrifice. Fortunately, Aphrodite cultivates a mermaid's true spirit. The White King of Hell isn't strong enough to kill her. We can't lose the sacrifice. Since Long Angwa wants to borrow the godly sea-calming needle, we'll lend it to him. Tell Long Angwa that I'm very interested in that kid's water treasure. This item can be used as interest for the 2 times he borrowed it. Yes, I'll convey the great divine priest's decree to Long Angwa. Report. The Heaven Fish clan of the 11th waterway requests the release of the prisoners in the mine prison. I heard they've already given in. What's going on? The Heaven Fish clan locks people up whenever they want and releases them whenever they want. Do they think the laws I set are child's play? The great divine priest was obviously displeased. After pondering for a moment, he still said, "Don't report such trivial matters to me in the future. You guys handle it yourselves. I've been fighting against immortal sovereign Zido's seal every day. I'm already mentally and physically exhausted. I don't have the leisure to care about such trivial matters. Inform the 12 waterways that I've already unlocked the seals of the underground formations of each waterway. The clan leaders of each clan can open and close the prison with their own will. Alright. If there's nothing else, I'm going to take a rest." The great divine priest's new order quickly spread across the entire eastern border river. When Ning Fan disguised himself as a Jiangshan fish and snuck into the Jiangshan clan, he happened to hear the Jiangshan fish talking about the new order. In the future, there's no need to inform the quasi-saints of the border river about the opening of the mine prison? Ning Fan was surprised. He was half happy and half worried. He was happy because if there was no need to inform the quasi-saints of the border river, it would undoubtedly be more convenient for him to act. However, he was worried because the higher-ups of the foreign races had no time to deal with the trivial matters of the other clans. Perhaps the foreign race's plan to conquer the eastern sky had already reached a critical moment. That was why they didn't have the time to deal with the trivial matters of the other clans. Forget it. I'll steal the heavy wood of the Jiangshan fish clan first. The Jiangshan fish clan was also an immortal venerable force. However, they had more than 100 kilograms of heavy wood, which was more than the heavenly clusterfish clan. Ning Fan had already infiltrated the Jiangshan fish clan for a few days. Today, the clan leader of the clan was patrolling on the water street when Ning Fan suddenly appeared in front of him. His eyes flashed with demonic light. The clan leader was just at the immortal venerable realm. How could he resist Ning Fan's illusory technique? After a brief moment of confusion, his face suddenly turned sullen and he yelled at Ning Fan. "Where did this little fish come from? How dare you stand in my way? Are you tired of living? Someone, take my token and open the door of the mine prison." Lock this madman inside and kill him with the wooden dragon punishment. Understood. A few stiff-faced Jiangshan fish walked out from the left and right, dragging Ning Fan away and locking him up in the mine prison. The surrounding Jiangshan fish who were watching the scene either laughed or sighed. All of them thought that Ning Fan would definitely die after being locked up in the mine prison. However, they didn't know that Ning Fan was the one who begged for it. 2 months later, Ning Fan robbed all the Een Heavy Wood of the Jiangshan fish clan. However, no one knew that the Een Heavy Wood was also robbed of hundreds of wooden dragons that were formed from the wood elemental energy that had been accumulating underground for hundreds of millions of years. When Ning Fan was released, the clan leader of the Jiangshan fish clan gave Ning Fan a lot of resources like the Heavenly Cluster Fish Immortal Venerables and sent him away from the clan. A few months later, Ning Fan robbed the Essence Extreme Fish clan. A few months later, the Mount Tai Fish clan also followed the footsteps of the other clans. Ning Fan's wood yin yang art became stronger and stronger. However, he was still far away from the true sovereign realm. Ning Fan's concoction technique of limitless pills became more and more skillful. He could already successfully concoct 6 to 7 batches out of 10. Ning Fan's ancient demon cultivation base became higher and higher. When he left the Mount Tai Fish clan, he had already consumed more than 20,000 limitless pills. His ancient demon cultivation base finally broke through to the first eternal tribulation. The power of the cataclysm was still terrifying, but Ning Fan still passed it with ease. Everything went smoothly. The only thing that didn't go well was probably the cultivation of the Heaven Goyu. The difficulty of cultivating the 4th volume of the Heaven Goyu was more than 10 times harder than the 3rd volume. Even with the help of the Mermaid's Tears, it would be difficult for Ning Fan to cultivate the 4th volume within a short period of time. Thus, he decided to put it aside for the time being. On this day, Ning Fan had finished plundering the Mount Tai Fish clan. Just as he was about to find an excuse to leave the clan, the roars of dragons and neighs of horses resounded throughout the entire Mount Tai Fish clan. The clan leader of the Mount Tai Fish clan, who was a 5 Tribulation Immortal King Realm cultivator, immediately led his clan members out of the clan to welcome the guests with reverence. If he was not mistaken, the guests should be influential figures of the Dragon Horse clan. They were not people that a small clan like the Mount Tai Fish clan could afford to offend. Ning Fan was hiding among the welcoming team of the Mount Tai Fish clan. If he was not mistaken, the guests seemed to be an immortal emperor of the Dragon Horse clan. As expected, the guests were the 12th prince of the 16 princes of the Dragon Horse clan. This time, he came to the Mount Tai Fish clan to forcefully recruit troops. My Dragon Horse clan is about to launch a large-scale attack to wash the Ling Yun Pass with blood and kill the white-robed king of hell. Your Mount Tai Fish clan has been a subsidiary of my Dragon Horse clan since ancient times. For this battle, you must send 100,000 elite troops to participate in the battle. No mistakes are allowed. Yes. I will certainly send the elite troops of my clan to assist my lord to capture the white-robed king of hell and take revenge. The leader of the Mount Tai Fish clan said with fear and trepidation. Currently, everyone in the 11 water paths knew about the grudge between the Dragon Horse clan and Ning Fan. Out of the 16 princes of the Dragon Horse clan, 7 of them were captured by Ning Fan. This grudge was absolutely irreconcilable. In the eyes of the leader of the Mount Tai Fish clan, the princes must have borrowed some powerful magic treasures to deal with Ning Fan again. No one knew that Ning Fan, who was hated by the princes of the Dragon Horse clan, was currently swimming leisurely under their noses. That 12th prince of the Dragon Horse clan was just a 6th Tribulation Immortal Emperor. How could he see through Ning Fan's disguise? He was ordered by his elder brother to deliver the conscription order to the 10+ medium-sized clans that were dependent on the Dragon Horse clan. The Mount Tai Fish clan was just one of them. Since the order had already been delivered, he did not plan to stay for long. He immediately left for the next subsidiary clan. Only after the 12th prince had left for a long time did the experts of the Mount Tai Fish clan dare to sigh and complain. Everyone knew how terrifying the white-robed king of hell was. Participating in the battle as a subsidiary clan was equivalent to being cannon fodder. Even so many immortal emperors could not do anything to Ning Fan. What was the use of sending 1,000,000 elite troops from their immortal king clan? For a moment, the Mount Tai Fish clan was shrouded by dark clouds. Ning Fan's eyes flashed. No one knew what he was planning. Speaking of which, the 12th prince of the Dragon Horse clan who came to deliver the conscription orders seemed to be alone. Ning Fan smiled coldly. He quietly swam out of the Mount Tai Fish clan and secretly chased after the 12th prince. The reason why the princes of the Dragon Horse clan conscripted a large number of troops to deal with him was probably because they had borrowed the legendary sea-stabilizing divine needle. If the battle starts again, Ning Fan did not have the confidence to defeat more than 10 immortal emperors of foreign races with ease again. He decided to kill a few immortal emperors of the Dragon Horse clan who were alone before the battle began to reduce the number of enemies. This action might expose his identity underwater. However, the benefits were also very obvious. Those immortal emperors of the Dragon Horse clan had let their guard down. Perhaps they would never expect that Ning Fan would actually dare to go underwater and stir up trouble. Chapter 11:27. The 12th prince of the Dragon Horse was called Long Cheng. He was different from the other brothers. Normally, he did not like to show off his dragon form. Instead, he liked to show off his horse form. After leaving the Jade clan of Mount Tai, Long Cheng transformed into a steed with 4 flaming hooves, galloping in the water. He was an immortal emperor of the water race, and he could use the flow of water to move forward. His speed in the water was something that Eastern Sky immortal emperors of the same level could not catch up to. If Ning Fan only disguised his cultivation base at the Void Fragmentation realm, it would naturally be impossible for him to catch up to Long Cheng. Because of this, he had to use some of his real cultivation. Long Cheng was leisurely swimming in the direction of the Sea Wolf tribe. When he reached a remote area of water, he suddenly frowned, as if he had sensed something. It could be said that his senses weren't wrong. Behind him, there was actually a Mount Tai fish chasing after him, and its speed was terrifyingly fast. Strange, too strange. This Mount Taishan fish had such a terrifying speed. It was actually faster than an immortal the Arch of the Water race like him. The strongest expert of the Mount Taishan fish race was merely an immortal king. How could there be such an expert who was adept at the water evasion? However, with such a fast Taishan fish, wasn't it just right for him? At that moment, Long Cheng was no longer in a hurry to continue his journey. Instead, he stopped in his tracks and waited for Ning Fan's arrival calmly. It was difficult for him to conceal the trace of greed in his eyes. The fish clan of Mount Tai was not good at fighting, but they were naturally good at traveling in the water. Their fins and tails were natural treasure crafting materials, which could be used to craft flying treasures. Most of the mutated races didn't care about treasures, but the 12th prince was an exception. Not a bad Mount Tai fish. This fish is so anxious to chase after me. I'm afraid the leader of the Mount Tai fish tribe forgot to tell me something, so he sent him to inform me. In terms of cultivation, this fish seemed to be a celestial paragon fish, not worth mentioning. However, his speed in the water was actually faster than mine. It must be because his fins and tail were of extremely high quality. If he used it to refine a magic treasure, he might even be able to refine a Khanate escape treasure. If that's the case, then I might have to kill him and refine his fins and tail into treasures. As the leader of the Mount Tai fish clan, even if I kill their clansmen in public, the Mount Tai fish clan wouldn't dare to resent me. Of course, it would be even better if he could find a reason to make a move. Let's just say that I killed him in a fit of anger. As Long Cheng had stopped moving, Ning Fan caught up to him in just a few breaths' time. One had to admit that the speed of an immortal emperor of the Water Clan was just too fast in the water. If Long Cheng did not take the initiative to stop, Ning Fan would probably have to spend a long time to catch up to him. As soon as he saw Ning Fan swimming towards him, Long Cheng said in a deep voice without giving Ning Fan any chance to speak. "How dare you? How dare you spy on the Emperor's tracks and follow me from behind? Is this how your patriarch teaches you? This is simply looking down on this old man's dignity as an immortal emperor. I don't care what message your clan has to pass on to me. Today, I must kill you to teach Mount Tai's fish clan leader a lesson. Without saying a word, he directly attacked Ning Fan. As he opened his mouth, countless dark green flame swords shot out from his mouth. Every single one of those tiny swords were the 12 Nirvana flying swords, and there were over 100 of them. Suddenly, they formed a sword formation that whistled through the air, and their power was even stronger than a single innate treasure sword. Ning Fan was slightly surprised. He did not understand why the other party would suddenly attack him. The excuse that Long Qing gave him was really lousy. It could not stand up to scrutiny at all. His eyes, on the other hand, were filled with undisguised greed. Perhaps he had misunderstood something and was plotting against him. Forget it. Is it really important why the other party wants to kill me? Ning Fan was too lazy to think about these reasons. After all, he also wanted to kill Long Qing. Boom! Ning Fan opened his mouth and spat out a ray of light. It was actually the sun, moon, and star steels. The power of the two steels was comparable to a mid-grade innate treasure. How could Long Qing's sword formation compare to it? Wherever the two steels passed, Long Qing's flying swords were directly smashed into pieces. These two steels. Your white robes. White robes Yama. As soon as Long Qing saw the sun, moon, and star steels, his heart, which was filled with killing intent just a moment ago, was instantly filled with fear. These two steels were Ning Fan's magic treasures. He had personally witnessed Ning Fan using these two steels to block the attack of his elder brother's fate-severing sword. It's actually Ning Fan. It's actually Ning Fan. The tiny Mount Tai fish that was following behind him was actually Ning Fan, whom the two brothers had been planning to deal with for the past few days. Why is this young man in the water domain? Why can he disguise himself as a Mount Tai fish without being noticed? No, I don't have time to think about these things. This young man is incomparably heaven-defying. The sea-calming divine pillar is not in his hands. If I fight him alone, I will definitely lose. Great evil subduing ring. Long Qing opened his mouth and spat out a ray of light at Ning Fan. Without looking at the result, he turned around and fled, not even caring about the magic treasures that were attacking Ning Fan. While he was fleeing, he instantly sent out hundreds of message-transmitting flying swords, hoping that one of them could reach his brothers and call for their help. Don't you think it's a little too late to leave now? Ning Fan sneered and used the sun, moon, and star steels to block the great evil subduing ring's attack. Then, his spirit sense turned into an illusory waterfall that covered an area of several thousand li, directly destroying all of Long Qing's message-transmitting flying swords. Long Qing's great evil subduing ring was a ring-type innate magic treasure. Its power was not bad, but it was much weaker compared to the sun, moon, and star steels. After being smashed a few times by the sun, moon, and star steels, its spiritual nature was greatly damaged. Its treasure light dispersed, and it did not have a master to control it. Ning Fan directly swallowed it into his stomach and erased the spirit sense imprint within it. All of a sudden, Long Qing, who had his magic treasure seized, spurted out a mouthful of blood. However, he did not dare to turn around to check on the great evil subduing ring at all. All he could do was hide the shock in his heart and flee for his life. It's impossible. How long has it been since I last met this young man, and his cultivation base seems to have become much stronger again. Moreover, his spirit sense has actually broken through to the waterfall realm. How is this possible? If the Eastern Heaven Immortal Emperor were to face Ning Fan, he would certainly not be forced to the point where he could not even send out a message for help. The immortal emperors of the foreign races could only blame themselves for not cultivating their sea of consciousness. Even if they could send out some spirit sense, it was not from their sea of consciousness but from the senses of their souls. How could this level of spirit sense be a match for Ning Fan's waterfall realm spirit sense? It was impossible for him to break through the seal of Ning Fan's spirit sense and send out his message-transmitting flying swords. Ning Fan swung his fishtail and disappeared from his original spot. At the next moment, he appeared in front of Long Qing, blocking his path. Innate dragon fire. Long Qing's face turned pale with fright. He immediately spurted out his natal dragon fire to attack Ning Fan. Then, He turned around and fled in another direction. While he was fleeing, he sent out countless message-transmitting flying swords for help. However, all of them were blocked by Ning Fan's waterfall spirit sense. Using fire techniques in deep water would weaken the power of the technique. Moreover, Ning Fan was not afraid of fire attacks. When his opponent's innate dragon fire attacked him, he did not even bother to defend himself. He directly opened his mouth and swallowed his opponent's dragon fire. Then he sneered and chased after Long Cheng again. Long Cheng was in despair. He could not defeat Ning Fan. His speed was also not as fast as Ning Fan. He could not even send out his message for help. In desperation, he suddenly made up his mind and activated his eternal true body. He turned into a 100 zhang tall horse and stomped on Ning Fan. The power of that stomp was enough to annihilate all living beings in the water domain within a few million li. Of course, he did not hope to kill Ning Fan with such a ferocious attack. Instead, he hoped to create a huge commotion so that the immortal emperors of other races nearby would notice what happened and come to his aid. How could Ning Fan not see through Long Cheng's plan? He naturally would not let Long Cheng's stomp land. Before Long Cheng's stomp landed, he directly shot out a ray of sword light and cut off the horse's leg. Fresh blood instantly dyed the water area red. However, due to Ning Fan's blockade, the area that was dyed red was very limited. It did not spread far away. Long Cheng shrieked in pain. He stared at the culprit who cut off his horse's leg in disbelief. The sea-defying sword. There's no mistaking it. This sword was clearly Ning Fan's Dao weapon. However, the power of this Dao weapon was actually much stronger than most of the low-grade innate flying swords. Could a Dao weapon that was known to be weak really achieve such terrifying power? Quick! Under Ning Fan's rebuke, the sea-defying sword slashed at Long Cheng again. If it wasn't for Ning Fan's blockade of the surrounding sea area, the entire sea would have been cut apart by the sea-defying sword. Long Cheng's expression changed drastically. How would he dare to face the sharp light of the sea-defying sword head-on? He turned his body to the side and evaded the attack. However, his back was struck by the sun, moon, and stars' steel. His internal organs were all crushed and he suffered unspeakable pain. The current Ning Fan relied on his powerful magic treasures. He did not even need to use his eternal true body or activate the cross-shaped halos to take down Long Cheng. However, in order to end the battle as soon as possible to prevent others from noticing the fluctuations in this place, Ning Fan still activated the cross-shaped halos. Even though Long Cheng had a mysterious immortal talisman on him which prevented him from moving, Ning Fan still relied on the concentrated attacks of the cross-shaped halos to create a gap. Then, he used hundreds and thousands of high-grade divine abilities to blast Long Cheng into pieces. That scene was as if hundreds and thousands of cannons were bombarding a mortal's body. The enemy was killed in an instant. In the end, the unlucky 12th Prince Long Cheng became the 8th Dragon Horse True Spirit that Ning Fan captured. Half of the 16 princes of the Dragon Horse race had already become Ning Fan's captives. Don't be happy too early. My elder brothers have borrowed the sea-steadying divine needle. They will certainly not let you go. The true spirit of Long Cheng said resentfully after being captured by Ning Fan. As expected, you guys have borrowed a magic treasure that can restrain my water attack. Humph! Are you afraid now? If you're afraid, then release this old man and my brothers. Finally, cripple your own cultivation and become a servant of my Dragon Horse clan. Perhaps this old man can ask my elder brother to show mercy and spare your life. Ning Fan was speechless. Why are all the princes who have been captured so confident? Could it be that they will only realize that I'm not in existence that they can afford to offend after I capture all of them? Humph! Why aren't you talking anymore? You are indeed afraid. Long Cheng still wanted to talk nonsense, but Ning Fan used his divine ability to torture him. For a moment, he was in so much pain that he could not speak. Fear towards Ning Fan grew in his heart, and he no longer dared to speak nonsense. Seeing this, Ning Fan finally stopped the torture. He was too lazy to care about Long Cheng. However, there was a question that he really wanted to ask Long Cheng even though the latter probably would not answer him. Your elder brother didn't only send you out to deliver the conscription order to the affiliated clans of the Dragon Horse clan, am I right? Ning Fan asked with a smile. What are you trying to do? My elder brother only sent me out. I'm telling you not to have any evil thoughts. Otherwise, you will be cut into pieces by my Dragon Horse clan. Long Cheng was shocked and denied flatly. However, Ning Fan did not need Long Cheng's acknowledgement at all. He could tell from his expression. This time, Long Cheng was definitely not the only one who came out to deliver the conscription order. There should be other princes who were alone. It was because he was afraid that Ning Fan would go and capture the other princes who were alone that Long Cheng turned pale with fright. Alright, you're useless now. Just be a good boy and be locked up with your elder brothers. Ning Fan drew out all the innate dragon flames in Long Cheng's body and devoured them all. Then, he took away the immortal talisman that could restrain the fixed body technique and planted layers of restrictions on him. Only then did he lock him up in the profound Yin world. Ning Fan already had 4 of such immortal talismans. They were obtained from the 16th prince, Aphrodite, Yuan Dan and the 12th prince respectively. It was not a one-time item but it had a limited number of uses. It seemed to be an immortal talisman that was specially developed by the foreign race to restrain the fixed body technique. Ning Fan activated his ability and cleaned up the battlefield around him. Then, he took out the treasure-searching compass and searched for the location of the princes with it. The treasure-searching compass was said to be able to search through everything in the world. As long as Ning Fan's Tao of divination was strong enough, the search of the compass would not even be noticed by the other party. The princes who were not strong in spirit sense would not know that their locations had already been exposed to Ning Fan. They turned into light spots and appeared on the compass. The 8 light spots represented the remaining 8 princes. Among them, 5 of the larger light spots were gathered together while the other 3 light spots were scattered in different locations of the 11 water regions. Ning Fan realized that there were probably 3 other princes who had received the same task as Long Cheng. They were in charge of passing the conscription order to the affiliated clans. Ning Fan did not kill Long Cheng nor did he ask him to send out a voice transmission to ask for help. Thus, it was impossible for the other party to know that the dignified white-robed king of hell was causing trouble in the water. If all of you immortal emperors are gathered together, I might still be a little afraid. However, if you are alone, don't blame me for taking advantage of your perilous state, Ning Fan sneered. He was a devil cultivator in the first place. He had learned from the old devil how to be unscrupulous in every possible way. Naturally, he would not let go of such a heaven-sent opportunity to capture the princes. Silently, Ning Fan swam towards one of the 3 light spots that were alone. A few days later, the eldest prince of the Dragon Horse race looked gloomy. The 8, 10, 11, and 12 princes he had sent out to pass the conscription order had all gone missing. He sent people to investigate. Eventually, he found traces of battles that had been hidden in the 11 water regions. He deduced that a great battle between immortal emperors had taken place there. What's going on? Who can tell me where my 4 brothers have gone? The eldest prince, Long Angua, was burning with anger. Countless members of the water clan below him were his subordinates. Seeing that his subordinates were silent and only knew how to tremble in fear, Long Angua became even more furious. After eating dozens of his subordinates, he finally calmed down a little and calmed down a little. Could it be the doing of the Eastern Heavens cultivators? The second prince, Long Wu, said in a deep voice. No way. How could the Eastern Heavens cultivators have the ability to dive into the water and capture immortal emperors? You should know that even though the 10th, 11th, and 12th brothers are only at the 6th tribulation realm, the 8th brother is at the 7th tribulation realm. Moreover, the battlefield is in our favor. Even if the only 9 tribulation immortal emperors sent by the Eastern Heavens cultivators came here, he definitely won't be able to capture our 4 brothers. Long Angua denied. Could it be the white-robed king of hell? The third prince, Long Ao, asked. This. Speaking of Ning Fan, Long Angua hesitated. In his mind, Ning Fan seemed to be able to do something that even the 9 Tribulation Immortal Emperor of the Eastern Heaven couldn't do. This didn't mean that Ning Fan's strength had already surpassed the 9 Tribulation Immortal Emperor, but his endless means were too hard to guard against. No, it's still not possible. That white-robed king of hell is an Eastern Heaven's cultivator after all. It's impossible for him to dive into the water without being noticed. Unfortunately, the battlefield has been cleaned up by someone. It's impossible to collect the fragments from the heaven and earth to observe them. Don't let me know who did this, or else this old man will tear him to pieces. Hateful, truly hateful. Long Angua said hatefully. How could he not hate? Ning Fan had captured 7 of his brothers, and now 4 of them were missing. Out of the 16 princes of the Dragon Horse, only 5 were left. How could he not feel sad? Could it be divine concealment? The 4th prince's dragon carriage suddenly revealed a look of fear. As soon as he said this, not only him, but everyone here also revealed a look of fear, including the 9 Tribulation Immortal Emperor Long Angua. There was a clan in the 11th path called the Heavenly Shadow Clan. The secret technique that they were proud of was called divine concealment. However, what everyone was afraid of now was not the divine concealment of the Heavenly Shadow Clan, but the source of the clan's secret technique, the truly terrifying existence. If it's divine concealment, even if my 4 brothers are immortal emperors, they won't be able to resist that monster. It's not strange for them to disappear mysteriously. However, if that monster took action, how could it give my 4 brothers the chance to resist? There shouldn't be any traces left behind. Long Angua shook his head, but his expression betrayed his inner thoughts. Obviously, he was somewhat convinced by the theory of divine concealment. I have a good friend who is under the command of the great divine priest. He visited me some time ago and told me that the blood god is in a weakened state. If it wasn't for that, the great divine priest wouldn't have dragged on with the Eastern Heavens cultivators and would have launched an all-out war. Once the blood god appears, even the Eastern Heavens Xiang Bozi, Ho Tu, and Musong would have to flee. The 6th prince pondered for a long time and finally decided to tell them about it. Hearing this, the expressions of Long Angua and the others changed greatly. Weakened state? Could it be that the blood god is eating in order to get through his weakened state? If that's the case, I'm afraid my 4 brothers won't be able to keep their immortal emperor cultivation. Even if they are released by Lord Blood God in the end, they won't be able to keep their previous realm. Damn the blood god, how dare he attack my brothers? Hateful, hateful. The 2nd prince cursed. Second brother, don't talk nonsense. Did you forget that there was a first-stage quasi-saint in the 9th water region who was eaten alive because he casually cursed the blood god? That's not something you and I can talk about. That's an ancient great cultivator. Long Angua said with a pale face. That year, he happened to see that quasi-saint being eaten with his own eyes. Naturally, he was especially afraid of that scene. Big brother is right. I was too reckless. The 2nd prince cursed out of anger. After he finished cursing, he remembered how terrifying the blood god was and didn't dare to say anything else. For a moment, the place fell into a strange silence. The atmosphere was unprecedentedly heavy. After a long time, Long Angua clenched his teeth and said unwillingly, "If it's really divine concealment, I'm afraid my 4 brothers can't be saved. We can only give up for now." But after losing 4 brothers, we, the Dragon Horse Crown Prince, are only left with 5 people. Our power is unprecedentedly weak. In this way, it's even more necessary to save our 7 brothers who are trapped in the enemy's hands. Have the conscription orders that Little 8 and the others haven't finished sending out been sent to the various clans? They've all been sent. This time, only the Immortal Primes and Immortal Kings were sent to send the orders. It should have been like this long ago. If we gather together, even the blood god will have to be cautious. It's impossible for him to attack us while he's weak. Long Angua said in hindsight. The few brothers didn't dare to argue with Long Angua, who couldn't vent his anger. They only cursed in their hearts. Who would have thought that a dignified immortal emperor would be divine concealment by Lord Blood God when he went out to send an order? Could it be that immortal emperors who had cultivated to the peak of the second step had to be overcautious and overcautious when going out? Of course, if they knew this would happen, they should have been cautious. Thinking of this, the few dragon horse crown princes felt a little lucky. Fortunately, they weren't the ones who went out to send the orders. Otherwise, wouldn't they be the ones who were divine concealment? By the way, how many immortal emperors from the other clans are willing to help us deal with the white-robed Yama this time? Long Angua asked his subordinates. As soon as he asked this question, everyone looked at each other, not knowing how to answer. Eventually, under Long Angua's fierce gaze, someone finally couldn't bear the pressure and told the truth. Previously, when Lord invited immortal emperors to deal with the white-robed Yama, a total of 33 immortal emperors came to help. Limited by the seal of the Realm River, only a few immortal emperors came out to help. This time, there are only 5 immortal emperors who are willing to participate in this matter. They all said that the great divine priest's important matter is imminent and it's not appropriate to fight for a white-robed Yama. They are afraid of that kid Ning Fan's beating. Do they really think that I will be defeated by him again this time? Short-sighted. Extremely short-sighted. Don't they know that I have borrowed the sea-steadying divine needle this time? I have 2 mid-grade innate magic treasures in my hands. Even if I encounter a quasi-saint realm expert, I can still put up a fight. Just a kid like Ning Fan who has lost his heaven-defying water attack. Why would I be afraid of him? I'll kill him just like a chicken. Long Angua was enraged. He was angry at how cold-blooded people were. When there's a good thing, they would come and get involved. When there's danger, they would sweep away the snow in front of their own door. However, Long Angua didn't think about it. If his identity was swapped, he probably wouldn't be willing to take the risk for an outsider either. Who doesn't know that Ning Fan is the last person in the Eastern Sky Alliance's army? How many more days will the 5 fellow Taoists who are going to help us arrive? 3 days. They said that they will come to help Lord if you give them 3 more days to prepare. Good. This time, even though we only have 10 immortal emperors, with the sea-steadying divine needle, it shouldn't be difficult to take down Ning Fan. Inform the affiliated clans of my clan that the army can start gathering. After capturing another 4 dragon horse immortal emperors, Ning Fan did not immediately blend into the other clans. Instead, he continued to stay in Mount Tai's Fish Clan, planning to respond to the Fish Clan's recruitment. Those dragon horse crown princes would probably never expect that the white-robed Yama whom they want to deal with was not in the cloud soaring pass but was hiding in their own camp. Ning Fan's hiding was not without reason. Wasn't the sea-steadying divine needle the enemy was relying on? He decided to hide behind the dragon horse crown princes and launch a sneak attack on them. He would attack whoever possesses the sea-steadying divine needle and snatch it away at all costs. Without this item, it doesn't matter how many immortal emperors there are. Once the water is flooded, all the enemies will be killed. Chapter 1128. The 11th Waterway, Lingyun Pass. Due to the fact that Ning Fan had captured several immortal emperors in a row, the 11 groups of foreign races were deeply shaken. None of them dared to come out of the water recklessly anymore. Occasionally, they would come to attack the soaring cloud pass, but they would only send small groups of attacks to harass the pass. They could not even break through the defense of the formation. Thus, there was no need for the cultivators guarding the pass to come out personally. Counting the time, it had already been close to a year since Lingyun Pass had been this peaceful. During Ning Fan's absence, all the matters in Lingyun Pass would be decided by Wanderer Golden Wind. Hermit Golden Wind was one of the 3 immortal venerables who followed Ning Fan to the expedition. The other 2 immortal venerables were Madame Shyflower and Revered Dragon. Lady Shyflower had already died in battle, so naturally, she could not help to defend the pass. As for the Venerable Dragon, his physical body had been destroyed due to his severe injuries, leaving only his primordial spirit. During the 1 year that Ning Fan had been hiding at the bottom of the river, the great heavenly tribulation that the venerated dragon transformation realm cultivator had been suppressing for many years finally could not be suppressed any longer. If his physical body wasn't destroyed, he would have a 60 to 70% chance of surviving the great heavenly tribulation. But now that he was heavily injured, he didn't even have a 20% chance. In the end, the dragon transformation Venerable barely managed to overcome the tribulation, but he died in the great heavenly tribulation and turned into ashes. Jin Feng Hermit's face was as gloomy as water. Eastern Sky was originally a land of war, and he was accustomed to fighting and killing since he was young. Regarding the fall of his comrades, he should have been indifferent. Even though he did not have a close relationship with those cultivators who had died in the Boundary River, he still felt sympathy for them. All of a sudden, a scout came and reported, "Sir, the brothers who are responsible for scouting the water area have discovered irregular waves from the southwest of the cloud-soaring pass. It seems that a large number of non-humankind beings have come out of the water." Golden Wind Hermit's expression changed as he asked, "Can you determine the exact number of enemies?" "No less than 10 million. What?" There were actually so many strange races coming out of the water. How is this possible? With such a large number of foreign races, it's impossible for there to be no foreign race immortal emperor commanding them. It seems like the other party wants to flatten our Lingyun Pass in one fell swoop. Men, quickly burn incense and pray for General Ning to return to guard the pass. Hermit Golden Wind did not think that he would be able to deal with a foreign race immortal emperor with his puny cultivation. Although Ning Fan said that he could summon him back if there was anything important, Jin Feng Hermit wasn't sure how long it would take for Ning Fan to return. His heart was gloomy, and he ordered several hundred more scouts to investigate in the direction of Cloud-Soaring Pass. But before those scouts could set off, countless bubbles suddenly appeared in the southwest direction, and the waves became turbulent. Not long after, gigantic beasts emerged from the depths of the water and floated to the surface. As far as the eye could see, there was a dense mass of outsiders, and their army stretched for hundreds of miles. The entire Lingyun Pass was in chaos. The number of enemies was no less than 10 million. What was even more shocking was that the enemy's formation was strict. In the center of the army, there were 10 immortal emperors. It's over. It was all over. The other party actually has 10 immortal emperors. We can't hold them off. We have to defend even if we can't. As long as we defend until General Ning returns, we will still have a chance to live. Fight. Everyone, climb up the city walls and inject your magic power into the formation to strengthen the defense of the formation. Full defense. Full defense. There were less than 1,000 cultivators guarding Cloud-Soaring Pass, and they seemed to be extremely insignificant in front of the foreign race army. However, their morale hadn't completely collapsed at this moment. It was only because there was one person in the pass who gave them boundless confidence, telling them that the immortal emperors of the foreign races were not scary. Although that person hadn't returned yet, as long as they could wait until he returned, the foreign races had nothing to be afraid of. Long Angua gave the order, and the foreign race army immediately attacked Cloud-Soaring Pass like a tide. Cloud-Soaring Pass's formation was very powerful, and even immortal emperors could be repelled. Killing ordinary foreign races was simply like cutting melons and vegetables. Hundreds and thousands of low-level foreign races were killed by the formation. Their corpses sank into the water, and their blood dyed the surface of the river red. But there were even more foreign races that advanced wave after wave, as if they didn't know the terror of death. These foreign race immortal emperors are very cunning. They don't want to face the power of the formation. They want to take the lives of the low-level foreign races and exhaust the power of the formation. Golden Wind Hermit clenched his teeth. He could see the opponent's plan, but he couldn't stop it. After the foreign races had sacrificed 100,000 lives, Cloud-Soaring Pass's formation began to weaken. After the foreign races had lost 400,000 people, cracks began to appear in Cloud-Soaring Pass's formation. More and more Eastern Sky cultivators' magic power was insufficient, and they were powerless to support the formation. More and more cracks appeared in the formation. Completely breaking it was only a matter of time. Lord, what should we do? The formation can only hold on for 100 breaths at most. I'm afraid General Ning won't be able to come back in time. Some Eastern Sky cultivators' faces were filled with despair. Golden Wind Hermit gritted his teeth and said fiercely, "Since I came to participate in the Alliance meeting, I've long been prepared to die in battle here. This pass can't be defended anymore. You all should escape by yourselves. I'll buy you some time to escape." After hearing what he said, all the Eastern Sky cultivators were silent. But not long after, their eyes were ignited with fighting intent. "If Lord doesn't leave, we won't leave either." Golden Wind Hermit was silent, then he laughed loudly. "Good. Let's fight to the death together. We won't disappoint our comrades. We won't disappoint our comrades. We won't retreat until we die. We won't retreat until we die." This group of Eastern Sky cultivators was obviously weak, but the fighting intent they emitted at this moment was shocking. If the formation was broken, they would stake everything on one throw and attack the enemy's formation with thousands of troops. Ning Fan, who was hiding among the foreign race's armies, sighed with emotion. The cultivators of the Four Heavens in the Lawless Age certainly had a lot of shortcomings, such as selfishness, utilitarianism, greed. But they were not completely useless. At least, they still retained the courage of their ancestors. That was the glory of Zido, immortal cultivator who would die unyieldingly. Life and death were all for Zido, immortal cultivator. The grand formation would be broken in another 70 to 80 breaths. Ning Fan naturally would not watch the soaring cloud pass turn into a river of blood. He blended into the battle formation of Mount Tai Fish. His spirit sense, however, turned into rain and mist, locking on to the foreign race's army. There were 10 immortal emperors, including the Dragon Horse Immortal Emperor, guarding the place. There was also a gigantic pillar that towered to the sky. It was several hundred zhang tall and was carried by a gigantic tortoise with a quasi-emperor realm cultivation base. That gigantic pillar seemed to be an antique. It was extremely old and covered with rust. Under the cover of the rust, not a trace of treasure light could be seen. Moreover, that iron pillar seemed to be extremely heavy. One had to know that the one who was responsible for carrying the pillar was a mountain-moving tortoise that was famous for its strength. An immortal venerable mountain-moving tortoise could carry several cultivation planets on its back. A mountain-moving tortoise with a quasi-emperor realm cultivation base could at least carry a few sea-defying swords and travel at high speed. At this moment, however, this quasi-emperor mountain-moving tortoise seemed to be struggling. Obviously, the weight of the iron pillar on its back was somewhat beyond its control. If ordinary immortal emperors were to sense it, most of them would not be able to identify the specific grade of this iron pillar. However, with Ning Fan's eyesight and senses, he could naturally sense the massive power contained within this iron pillar. It was not just heavy. Low-grade innate realm. No, it should be mid-grade innate realm. Even though Ning Fan's senses could not be 100% accurate with the layers of rust on it, he was 80 to 90% confident that it was a mid-grade innate realm magic treasure. However, he did not have much confidence that this item was the sea-calming Divine Needle. Divine Needle? Judging from its name, it should be a small object. How could it be such a gigantic iron pillar? It was obviously just an iron pillar. If it was named as a needle, it seemed a little unreasonable. However, there was indeed a massive water-sealing force within this iron pillar. It was almost enough to suppress the full power of the water flood bottle. It was incomparably powerful. Ning Fan's eyes flickered. He seemed to be hesitating. Seeing that the grand formation was about to be broken, he knew that he did not have much time to hesitate. He suddenly turned around and pretended to be injured by the formation of the Ling Yun Pass. With a fearful look on his face, he quietly swam towards the center of the army where the mountain-moving tortoise was. Some high-grade foreign races who were in charge of guarding the center of the army naturally noticed Ning Fan's approach. All of them frowned. From their point of view, Ning Fan was just a deserter. He was just injured by the formation of the Ling Yun Pass. Now, he actually fled towards the center of the army. He deserved to be killed. Little fish of Mount Tai, return to the battlefield at once. Otherwise, you will be killed without mercy. Among the guards in the center of the army, An immortal king realm expert from the Thunder Shark clan flashed with killing intent and warned Ning Fan. Ning Fan, on the other hand, seemed to be scared out of his wits by the grand formation of the Ling Yun Pass. He completely ignored the warning of the immortal king of the Thunder Shark clan and continued swimming towards the center of the army. Upon seeing that, the immortal king of the Thunder Shark clan sneered. He opened his mouth and breathed out a purple divine lightning, striking Ning Fan into countless charred pieces of flesh. The pieces of flesh flew towards the center of the army. However, no one paid any attention to them. Moreover, no one noticed that one of the pieces of flesh flew towards the direction of the mountain-moving tortoise, seemingly unintentionally or unintentionally. When the mountain-moving tortoise saw a large piece of Mount Tai's flesh flying towards it, it drooled greedily and swallowed the piece of flesh into its stomach. Not only did the mountain-moving tortoise love to eat human flesh, but it also loved to eat fish meat. Fish meat that was smooth and tender like Mount Tai was one of its favorite delicacies. Of course, the mountain-moving tortoise would not eat it. It was just casually eating a piece of fish meat and it actually caused a disaster. In the past, there would occasionally be carcasses of the fish clan flying towards it. However, it would always gobble them up without any mishaps. This time, however, something happened. He suddenly felt a sharp pain coming from his abdomen. It was not an ordinary sharp pain. Instead, it was as if something was wantonly destroying his internal organs. One should know that as the mountain-moving tortoise, his internal organs were already as hard as magical treasures. However, at this moment, countless of his internal organs were destroyed by a small piece of fish meat. He seemed to have realized something. His face was filled with fear and he wanted to vomit out the burnt fish meat that he had swallowed earlier. However, it was already too late. As a ray of sword light shot towards the sky, the gluttonous mountain-moving tortoise was cut into half from the inside out. It died with everlasting regret. That piece of burnt fish meat flew out from the mountain-moving tortoise's body. Under the shocked gazes of countless experts of the foreign races, it shook its body and turned into Ning Fan. He was dressed in white robes and had a peerless elegance. However, his expression was as cold as ice from the netherworld. "This needle belongs to me now." Ning Fan wanted to snatch the needle away, but his expression suddenly changed. He realized that he could not store the needle into his profound Yin world. He wanted to use his physical strength to take the needle away, but he realized that he could not even lift the sea-calming divine needle with his current strength. It was not easy for him to disguise himself and get close to the needle. Initially, he wanted to snatch it away, but he realized that he could not do so. The opportunity was fleeting. The angry roars of countless foreign races could be heard beside him. "It's the white-robed Yama. Be careful. He wants to snatch the sea-calming divine needle. Take him down. Kill him. We can't let him snatch the needle away." Even the group of immortal emperors were shocked. They did not expect that Ning Fan would approach them in disguise and snatch the needle away. This was the only thing that they had that could deal with Ning Fan. If it was snatched away, the consequences would be unimaginable. Only Long Angua did not panic when Ning Fan tried to snatch the needle away. He had never underestimated Ning Fan. He firmly believed that with Ning Fan's capabilities, he would be able to find out that he was coming for a large-scale attack from some channels and prepare the sea-calming divine needle, which was a magical treasure that could restrain him. He had even rehearsed this battle countless times in his mind. Every time, he would consider the worst scenario and think of all the ways that Ning Fan could use to deal with the sea-calming divine needle. He had considered the possibility that Ning Fan might have a certain item that could restrain the sea-calming divine needle. If that was the case, he could only accept his fate. He had considered the possibility that Ning Fan would sneak over to steal the sea-calming divine needle. If that was the case, he would set up a trap to trick Ning Fan into stealing the needle. However, he did not expect that Ning Fan would disguise himself as a Mount Tai fish and approach the sea-calming divine needle stealthily. As a result, the invisibility formation that he had set up in the surroundings had lost its effect. However, it did not matter. No matter how Ning Fan approached the sea-calming divine needle, he had prepared a backup plan. First of all, the the sea-calming divine needle could not be kept in the space of the treasure. Secondly, the sea-calming divine needle was extremely heavy. In fact, even a quasi-emperor mountain-moving turtle would not be able to move it. Even a 9-tribulation immortal emperor like him could not move the sea-calming divine needle by himself. When he went to borrow the sea-calming divine needle, he had to ask for the help of another 9-tribulation immortal emperor under the great divine priest. Both of them worked together to move the sea-calming divine needle back. That quasi-emperor mountain-moving turtle had actually consumed a pill that damaged its foundation and stimulated its potential. That was why it could exert 10 times its strength in a short period of time. That was how it managed to move the sea-calming divine needle. However, Ning Fan definitely could not move it. Even if this brat approached the treasure with schemes, he would not be able to take it away. Rumble. The sea-calming divine needle that had lost the weight of the mountain-moving turtle fell from the ground and into the water. However, under Long Angwa's secret technique, the needle only sank into the water surface of the boundary river. It did not sink completely. Instead, it floated strangely on the surface of the water. Long Angwa did not give Ning Fan any time to hesitate. Once again, he activated his divine ability. The space around Ning Fan cracked open all of a sudden. Then, countless immortal binding chains shot out from the cracks and bound Ning Fan tightly. Ning Fan, who was bound by the immortal binding chains, seemed very shocked. He looked at Long Angwa with a face full of disbelief. He wanted to activate his magic power, but all of his magic power was sealed by the immortal binding chains. He was like a cripple. Long Angwa only needed to use a small trick to capture Ning Fan. Finally, the shadow in his heart was swept away. What bullshit, White Rogue Yama. Justice, this old man only needed to use a small trick to capture you. You thought that I would use the sea-calming divine needle to deal with your water realm. However, you didn't expect that I would use the sea-calming divine needle as a bait to ambush you. You were too careless. Little bastard. That's right. I was really too careless. Ning Fan's face was filled with despair. While Ning Fan was in despair, all the Eastern Heaven immortal cultivators in the entire Cloud Soaring Pass had also fallen into despair. Originally, when they found out that Ning Fan had suddenly appeared and killed a mountain-moving turtle, they were very happy. However, as soon as Ning Fan appeared, he was captured by the enemy immortal emperor. This was a great blow to them, as if the last trace of hope in their hearts had been extinguished. How could this be? Lord Ning Fan was so powerful. How could he be captured by the enemy in a single move? They were wrong. Their expectations of Lord Ning Fan were too high. They shouldn't have given Lord Ning Fan such a heavy burden and pressure. No matter how great Lord Ning Fan's battle achievements were, he was still just an ancient immortal venerable. When the enemy saw through all of Lord Ning Fan's tricks and restrained them, he could only rely on his own cultivation base to win the battle. He had no advantage at all. As an ancient immortal venerable, Lord Ning Fan had always done enough and he was good enough. On the contrary, it was them, his subordinates, who were too weak and incompetent. That was why they kept dragging Lord Ning Fan down. If there was someone among them who could fight against the enemy immortal emperor like Lord Ning Fan, they would be able to rescue Lord Ning Fan even if he was captured. However, they could not save Ning Fan. They could only watch Ning Fan fall into the enemy's hands. Suddenly, Hermit Golden Wind's eyes were filled with the determination to die. Yes, he did not have the ability to save Ning Fan. However, this was not the reason why he should not go and rescue Ning Fan. Whether he could do it or not was one thing. Whether he could do it or not was another. I want to kill my way into the enemy's army and rescue General Ning. If you are not afraid of death, follow me. I'll go. I'll go too. Count me in. Just as Hermit Golden Wind gave the order to remove the formation of the Cloud Soaring Pass, something strange happened. Ning Fan, who was tied up by the immortal binding rope, suddenly turned into a ray of light and exploded. At the same time, Long Angwa, who was still laughing heartily just a moment ago, was pierced by a sharp sword that was inlaid with heavenly magatama. Then, 1,000 rays of dazzling divine light from the heavenly Magatama exploded inside Long Angwa's iron dragon body with a loud bang. Before Long Angwa could even react, his physical body was already destroyed by Ning Fan's sword. Every slash of the ocean-defying sword that was inlaid with the heavenly Magatama contained endless explosive force. This was the power that the heavenly Magatama carried. This power might not be enough to damage the iron skin of an immortal emperor, but if it explodes from the inside, even a 9-tribulation immortal emperor would not be able to withstand it. The heavenly Magatama. How could this be? Blood mist filled the air. Long Angwa's true spirit fled in a panic, narrowly avoiding Ning Fan's next slash. There was a mysterious immortal talisman on the chest of his true spirit. His small face was filled with astonishment, anger, and hatred. He did not understand. He did not understand. He was the one who had schemed against Ning Fan. However, why did Ning Fan turn the tables on him and even his physical body was destroyed? Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Since his physical body was destroyed, the strength that he could exert now was similar to that of an ordinary 8-tribulation immortal emperor. Moreover, due to the injury of his true spirit, he could not use too much magic power. Otherwise, his foundation would definitely be damaged. Even though the sea-steadying divine needle was not taken away, he could not display his 9-tribulation immortal strength that could suppress Ning Fan for the time being. It was hard to say whether he would gain or lose. I have clearly set up an invisibility formation in the surroundings. How did you sneak up to me? It's impossible for you to be invisible. Ning Fan sneered. He was not an idiot. Why would he chat with the enemy on the battlefield and give them a chance to launch a sneak attack on him? The one who was captured was the fake body that he had created using an illusion technique. His true body was hiding at a distance. Long Angwa and the others thought that they had captured him. Feeling overjoyed, they naturally relaxed their minds for a moment. It was at this moment that Ning Fan seized the opportunity to cast an illusion technique on everyone. He walked to Long Angwa's back openly and stabbed him with his sword. He did not conceal himself. Thus, the formation that could suppress invisibility in the surroundings naturally would not give off any alarm. If Long Angwa did not think that he had captured Ning Fan and let his guard down, Ning Fan's current attainments in illusion technique would not be enough to cast an illusion technique on such an existence. Moreover, even if he cast a verbal technique, it would not be possible for him to fool them for too long. However, he could still do it for a short moment. It was still enough for him to slash Long Angwa with his sword. Seeing that Ning Fan was not captured but severely injured the immortal emperor with the highest cultivation base on the enemy's side, the people below the Ling Yun Pass burst into thunderous cheers. The General Ning whom they respected did not disappoint them. Being captured was just an illusion. Injuring a 9-tribulation immortal emperor with a single sword strike was the reality. General Ning is mighty. Lord Ning Fan is mighty. His Highness Sha Di is invincible. Reign Immortal Monarch is invincible. Unlike the thunderous cheers in the Ling Yun Pass, the army of the foreign races fell into a strange silence after Ning Fan severely injured Long Angwa with a single sword strike. There were more than 10 million low-grade foreign races. Each of them was intimidated by Ning Fan's monstrous baleful chi. None of them dared to move recklessly. There were also many giant beasts who could not withstand Ning Fan's ferocious aura force and trembled uncontrollably. Long Angwa's true spirit's small face was filled with ferocity. Seeing that Ning Fan actually did not care about him, his expression became even more distorted. He wished he could eat Ning Fan's flesh and blood and gnaw Ning Fan's bones. One should know that most of his abilities were based on his physical body. Even if he recultivates his physical body, his cultivation base and abilities would more or less be weakened. Even if he kills Ning Fan today, it would not be enough to dispel this hatred. This hatred was even heavier than when his brothers were captured by Ning Fan. There's no need to care about the ants in the Ling Yun Pass. It's enough for me to just kill this man. If I don't kill him, I won't be able to eat and sleep in peace. Yes. As Long Angwa gave his order, the formation of the army of 10 million foreign races changed drastically. Countless abilities formed into a formation and bombarded Ning Fan. The Dragon Horse Crown Prince and the other 8 immortal emperors even tried to find a gap to attack Ning Fan under the torrential attacks of tens of millions of abilities. Long Angua did not participate in the attack. Currently, he had lost his physical body and only had his true spirit left. It was not suitable for him to use too much magic power. However, he did not mind personally tearing Ning Fan into pieces. Close your eyes. It was Ning Fan's telepathic message to every cultivator in the Ling Yun Pass. Relying on his speed, Ning Fan directly flashed several hundred li away from the formation of the foreign races, causing countless attacks to miss their target. If they were immortal emperors' attacks that locked onto him with their magic power, it would be difficult for him to dodge. However, if they were just low-grade foreign races, what use would it be no matter how many of them there were? Perhaps if he stood still, he would be killed by the joint attack of tens of millions of foreign races. However, why did he not move? Why did he let them focus their attacks on him? Why did he not dodge? At the same time, Ning Fan raised his hand and summoned the immemorial lightning cauldron. As soon as the cauldron appeared, all the immortal emperors including Long Angua were shocked. Without saying a word, they closed their eyes. Many experts of the foreign races had heard about the immemorial lightning cauldron in advance and were prepared for it. At this moment, they also closed their eyes. However, there were still millions of foreign races who did not have the time to close their eyes. When unimaginably dazzling lightning flashed, millions of gigantic foreign beasts were blinded by the lightning and their spirit sense was penetrated. Even though his attack succeeded, Ning Fan did not plan to remove the immemorial lightning cauldron. He could not steal the sea-steadying divine needle. As long as this needle was still standing there, his water-flooding bottle would be restrained and he would not be able to use his attacks. In this way, even though he managed to destroy the physical body of the strongest immortal emperors on the opposing side with a sneak attack, he was still at a great disadvantage. After all, his opponents were 10 immortal emperors who had specifically defended against him. He could not guarantee how many of the abilities he had used were restrained by them. In this case, he had to find his own advantage and find a chance to win. The immemorial lightning cauldron was where his chance to win lay. As long as the lightning light of the immemorial lightning cauldron is activated, no one would be able to open their eyes and use their spirit sense. Everyone would be blinded. To the foreign races, recklessly releasing abilities would only hurt their own people. It would be difficult for them to hit Ning Fan. However, Ning Fan was different. Although he was outnumbered, he had an advantage at this moment. Being in the middle of an army of tens of millions of people, if the other party wants to hit him with a single ability, the probability of it hitting him was almost 1 in 10 million. If they release a group attack, it would affect their own soldiers and cause a large number of casualties on their side. Ning Fan, on the other hand, did not have such concerns. There were no cultivators from the Eastern Heaven among the army of 10 million foreign races. He just randomly chose a direction to release his abilities and those he killed were all his enemies. Cross-shaped halos, activate. Eternal true body, activate. Steel of sun, moon and stars, smash as much as you want. Ocean-defying sword, slash as much as you want. Wondrous tree of 7 treasures, sweep as much as you want. Ning Fan activated his abilities. Screams of agony resounded in the surroundings. In the dazzling lightning light, Ning Fan did not dare to open his eyes. He did not know who and how many people he had killed. Since they were all enemies, it did not matter. I can kill to my heart's content even with my eyes closed. Long Angua and the others, on the other hand, were dumbfounded. They tried to locate Ning Fan's location with their hearing and closed their eyes to release their attacks at the place where the screams were the most. However, these attacks usually could not hit Ning Fan and could only hurt their own people. Even if they accidentally hit Ning Fan, they would be blocked by Ning Fan's heaven-defying eternal true body without suffering any injuries. All the immortal emperors of the foreign races felt aggrieved. Even though they did not care about the lives of their subordinates, being forced by the enemy to kill their subordinates with their own hands was still as uncomfortable as eating a fly's feces. Don't worry. This kind of dazzling lightning light will certainly not last for long. This is the large-scale lightning light released by a mid-grade innate magic treasure. How much magic power does this young man have? How is it possible for him to release it for a long time? Once his lightning light stops, we will focus our attacks on him and kill him, Long Angua said confidently. Unfortunately, Ning Fan had unlimited magic power under the state of the cross-shaped halo. Unless his mental strength is depleted, he could keep this lightning light that was close to cheating on him. As for the depletion of his mental strength, Ning Fan, who still had a large amount of spirit-recovering rice, was not worried at all. He wanted to cheat. He wanted to be despicable and shameless. Why could the enemy send out 10 immortal emperors to attack him but he could not fight back? He wanted to inflict pain on the enemy's army. He wanted to make the foreign races bleed like a river. He wanted to make the people who plotted against him pay the price. The time it takes for an incense stick to burn past. The time it takes for 2 incense sticks to burn past. The lightning light did not weaken at all. Long Angua was unwilling to admit it, but he had to admit that Ning Fan's magic power was too vast. It was abnormal. Even a 9 Tribulation Immortal Emperor would not be able to use a mid-grade innate magic treasure for such a long time. Unfortunately, their research on the cross-shaped halo was limited. They only knew how to fix his body and focus their attacks on him. However, they did not know that the cross-shaped halo could also grant Ning Fan unlimited magic power. Seeing that there was no end to the lightning light and no one knew how long it would take for it to disappear, even though Long Angua was unwilling, he had no choice but to order the low-grade foreign races army to temporarily return to the bottom of the water and withdraw from this battle. With the immemorial lightning cauldron here, those low-grade foreign races could no longer provide any help. It was no longer possible for them to win a war of attrition by relying on their numbers or focusing their attacks on Ning Fan with their divine abilities. Not long after, the foreign race's army retreated to the bottom of the water. Within the lightning light, only Long Angua and the other foreign emperors and Ning Fan were left. In this way, even though the immortal emperors still could not open their eyes, they could still determine Ning Fan's location by listening to the sound. "Young man, your lightning light is useless now." The second Dragon Horse Crown Prince laughed loudly. Together with the other immortal emperors, they launched an attack at Ning Fan. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.